Chapter 877. Lin Tian and the others looked in the direction that Baichio was pointing at. They saw that in the dim underground space, there was indeed a palace in front of them. It was completely made of earth and stone, and it looked incomparably dark, like a ferocious beast lying on the ground. Go, let's go! Lin Tian now. The air in the underground space was cold, and wisps of fog floated in the air. The ground was very damp, and stepping on it would cause some water to splash out from time to time. The water was dark red, like blood, and it gave people a kind of eerie feeling. Roar! Ugh! There were many corpses around. When they saw the four people and the crocodile, they all roared and rushed over with a mighty aura of death. These corpses were not ordinary, and many of them were existences comparable to the immortal realm. However, for the four people and the crocodile, they were nothing. Lin Tian raised his hand, and the golden sword light swept across, crushing all the corpses that rushed over. They were very fast, and soon crossed several hundred feet, killing countless corpses and dead beasts along the way. Wait! Lin Tian now stopped. The dragon patterns on the soles of his feet spread, and soon after he broke through the ground and grabbed a huge piece of immortal Lingjing. It was more than 20 kilograms, and the other three people and the crocodile were surprised. This was equivalent to more than 200,000 kilograms of ordinary Lingjing. There's actually such a huge piece of immortal Lingjing in this kind of eerie place. Wishing Crocodile was quite surprised. The eerie you said is only the air and atmosphere, and has nothing to do with the direction of the ley lines, Lin Tian said. This is a divine spiritual land, and there's nothing strange about such a piece of immortal Lingjing hidden underground. He put away the piece of immortal Lingjing, and the group continued forward. After that, Lin Tian used the dragon patterns to open a path and found more than 10 kilograms of immortal Lingjing. He also dug out some precious roots and immortal herbs, and their value was very high. Soon, they arrived in front of the main hall of the tomb. There were many corpses and evil spirits lingering around the hall. The group of people didn't care. Lin Tian made his move, a golden sword light swept out, blowing away all the corpses in front of him. Then he arrived in front of the main door of the main hall. His right hand pressed down on it, and with a fierce push, the door opened with a creak. Boom! Suddenly, an extremely dense aura of death rushed out, like a surging river of qi. Lin Tian and the others were already prepared, each of them erecting a defensive light screen. But even so, the defensive light screen they erected was still corroded in an instant, emitting a sizzling sound when it came into contact with the qi. The qi is so strong. It seems that the tomb owner was a top existence even among demon saints when he was alive. Whooshing Crocodile clicked its tongue. Lin Tian didn't pay much attention to it. After saying, "Be careful," he stepped forward and walked into the hall. As soon as they entered the hall, the space suddenly became darker. At the same time, the air became colder. In front of them, a qi rushed over. It was a monster with a tiger's head and a leopard's tail. Its flesh was rotten, and it only had one eye. However, the aura it emitted was very frightening. It could definitely tear apart an early-stage Great Tao expert. Lin Tian raised his hand, and with a simple slap, the monster was smashed to pieces on the spot. At this time, the group of people sized up the front. They saw that the structure of the hall was very simple. It wasn't vast, and there was only one path leading to the end of the hall. Lin Tian's feet flickered with dragon patterns, which slowly spread out. It's as simple as it looks. The tomb owner's mausoleum should be at the end of this path. This place was a god's spiritual land. Since that existence saw that this place was extraordinary, it must have placed its mausoleum at the core of the god's spiritual land. After exploring with the dragon burial scripture, he found that the core of the god's spiritual land was in the depths of this hall. The tomb owner's mausoleum should also be there. Okay, let's rush over, Wishing Crocodile said. The group of people had extraordinary cultivation. Naturally, they were bold because they were skilled. Immediately, they walked down the only path in the hall. Inside, the qi was much thicker than outside. The group of people propped up divine power light screens and demonic power light screens to protect themselves. Their pace was slightly faster, and in the blink of an eye, they had crossed a small half of the hall. Ugh! An ear-piercing roar sounded, and a few terrifying evil spirits rushed out. They were covered in blood scales, and they looked like bloodthirsty demons. Lin Tian flicked his finger, and a golden light flew out. It sank into the glabella of a few evil spirits, causing their heads to explode. Boom! Yinchi rolled out from the depths of the hall. More evil spirits appeared. They were all in corpses in the form of beasts. Some were pure skeletons, while others had rotten flesh. The aura of death was very strong, and among them, there were many existences comparable to great Tao experts. Lin Tian and the others were slightly surprised. With their strength, they could easily kill ordinary great Tao experts. However, there were too many evil spirits comparable to great Tao experts here. Together, they were not easy to deal with. Suddenly, each of them became serious. With a boom, the group of people acted at the same time. They propped up powerful supernatural powers and secret techniques, which turned into destructive waves that pressed forward. Poof! 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 In the blink of an eye, the evil spirits exploded one after another. They either turned into black ashes or into puddles of thick, stinking blood. Just like that, the 4 people and 1 crocodile advanced into the depths of the hall. Soon, they arrived in front of a stone chamber at the end of the hall. "This is the Tomb Master's mausoleum?" Baichio asked. "It shouldn't be wrong." Lin Tian nodded. Based on the results of his dragon-marked scan, this was the core area of the divine spiritual land. Looking around, this stone chamber was not simple. The stone door was covered with pictures of mountains, rivers, birds, and beasts. There were also other dense marks of Tao. They were all extraordinary. Although the surroundings were shrouded in a thick aura of death, it also had a celestial charm. There was no doubt that this was the Tomb Master's mausoleum. He asked the others to step back a little, and then he stepped forward. It took him a lot of effort to push open the stone door. Suddenly, an even thicker aura of death rushed out, melting the air. It caused a black hole to appear in the air outside the stone chamber. It was a bit scary. "Let's go." Lin Tiandao used the Heart Sutra of Sun to prop up a golden divine screen. He swept away the aura of death that rushed out and calmly stepped into the stone chamber. The stone chamber was very large. It was more than 300 square meters. The aura of death inside was thick, but there were also many shining treasures scattered in the corners of the stone chamber. "Immortal spirit jade, a divine material for forging saint weapons." Whooshing Crocodile saw purple jade at a glance. He raised his hand and grabbed it, his eyes shining. "There's a stone sword over there. It looks like a divine weapon that was born naturally." Baichio grabbed a stone sword that was much stronger than the blood-colored divine sword. Bai Ziki and Yangqi also took action. They grabbed one strange treasure after another, all of which were very valuable. There were several divine materials that could be used to forge saint weapons. It was enough to make peak Nirvana experts fight for it. The tomb owner's strength is tyrannical. In this immortal mansion world, he collected a lot of good natural treasures. Wishing Crocodile clicked his tongue and said. Lin Tiandao took action. He grabbed a lot of treasures. Among them was a piece of black gold meteoric iron, which was also a divine material for forging saint weapons. If he took it out to sell, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. Then, suddenly, his gaze fell on another corner. He found a pile of flags with bone poles. There were a total of 49 flags. He raised his hand and grabbed them. Looking at it from a close distance, he saw that the 49 bone flags were engraved with complicated and mysterious patterns, intertwining with a very terrifying aura. However, more than half of the bone flags had cracks on them, as if they would shatter with a light shake. Wishing Crocodile looked up and stared at the 49 bone flags that Lin Tian now grabbed. He revealed a slightly strange expression. This seems to have evolved from a kind of imperial sacrificial killing technique of the demon race. It's similar to a kind of formation. If these 49 bone flags are displayed together, they can definitely seal an ordinary Wuxian cultivator to death. As he spoke, he shook them again. Seeing that more than half of the bone flags had cracks, he said regretfully, "However, it looks very damaged. I guess it can only be used once. Once is enough. After all, it can seal an ordinary Wuxian cultivator to death. It can be considered a great weapon of mass destruction." Lin Tian now put it away. The 4 people and 1 crocodile searched the stone room. Each of them took a lot of treasures and collected everything. "This is the only one left," Wuxian Crocodile said. He looked at the innermost part of the stone room. There was a blood-red coffin that looked extraordinary no matter how he looked at it. Bai Qiu stared. "We've already taken all the treasures. Now we're going to dig up someone else's coffin. Isn't that inappropriate? Little girl, what do you know? Look at the blood-red coffin. It looks extraordinary. There must be something better hidden in it," Wuxian Crocodile said. Bai Qiu stared and looked at Lin Tian now. Looking at her inquiring eyes, Lin Tian now nodded and said, "That's possible. After all, as the owner of the tomb, it's very normal to put the most precious thing in his life next to the corpse in his coffin." "Then open it," Bai Ziki said. "Lord Crocodile, come!" Wuxian Crocodile stepped forward. Without saying a word, he waved his claws and lifted the lid of the blood-red coffin. He pushed it to the ground. With a bang, a terrifying aura of death suddenly surged out. After the lid of the coffin was pushed open, it was as if the door to the underworld had been opened. A black fog filled the coffin. A pair of blood-red ghost eyes opened, shooting out 2 rays of death. Immediately, everyone's expression changed. Lin Tian now raised his hand and grabbed Wuxian Crocodile. At the same time, he summoned the 9 Springs Sacred Sword and slashed it forward. The 9 Springs Sacred Sword collided with the 2 rays of death, making 2 crisp sounds. The 2 rays of death instantly exploded, and at the same time, the stone room shook violently. "Damn it, the corpse turned?" Wuxian Crocodile stared at the blood-red coffin. In the blood-red coffin, the black fog of death was rolling. A pale claw covered in beast fur reached out and grabbed one side of the blood-red coffin. Then, a second claw reached out, also covered in beast fur, and grabbed the other side of the coffin. In an instant, an even more terrifying aura of death surged out. A tall humanoid creature stood up. Its eyes were blood-red, but its cheeks were pale. There was a horn on each side of its head, just like the legendary demon tribe. "It's comparable to the peak Wuxian demon god." Chapter 878. The creature that walked out of the bloodstone coffin was indeed a demon. Its cheeks were as pale as paper, and its body was surrounded by a deathly aura. It looked terrifying and creepy, and its aura was comparable to that of a peak Enlightenment realm expert. "Damn it, this thing has already turned into a corpse, but it didn't jump out. Was it deliberately lying in there and waiting to ambush the person who opened the coffin?" Wuxian Crocodile cursed. The demon corpse growled, and its pale face was horrifying. It stared at Wuxian Crocodile and directly clawed at him. For a moment, the stone room rumbled. Wuxian Crocodile bared his teeth and directly used the 5 elements art. The two collided with each other and made a boom, causing the stone room to shake even more violently as if it was about to collapse. Beside him, Lin Tian acted. He didn't hold back and directly used the reincarnation diagram to suppress the demon corpse. On the other side, Bai Qiu, Bai Ziki, and Yang Qi also used their own methods and secret techniques to descend on the demon corpse. Roar! The demon corpse roared, and the deathly aura surged. In an instant, everything was shattered. "This is a bit troublesome. Although this thing doesn't have intelligence, and its actual combat power is far from that of a true peak Enlightenment realm expert, it is still undefeatable for us," Wuxian Crocodile said. He summoned the divine sword in his body and slashed at the ferocious demon corpse. Clang! 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 Bai Qiu and the other 2 also summoned their divine swords. The killing aura surged and almost overturned the stone room. The aura was terrifying. Lin Tian didn't say anything. The dragon pattern on the soles of his feet spread, and he also summoned a blood-colored divine sword. He used the 3 styles of Ling Tian and slashed out a dazzling sword light. Combined with the killing aura of the 3 people and the crocodile, they forced the demon corpse to retreat about 10 feet. Roar! The demon corpse stabilized its body and let out an even more ear-piercing ghost howl. Its pair of blood-red eyes were horrifying, and the deathly aura surged. It had 2 horns on its head and beast fur on its arms. There were even scales on many parts of its body. Its claws slapped at the 4 people and the crocodile at the same time. Damn it, it's still so arrogant after death! Whooshing Crocodile cursed. With a Hong sound, it displayed the great 5 elements art even more powerfully, activating it with the divine weapon. The might it released immediately skyrocketed. However, in the face of the powerful demonic corpse, such strength was ultimately insufficient. It was directly shattered by the demonic corpse's beast claw. Boom! Clang! Bai Ziki propped up the God-rumble palace of the royal domain, while Yang Qi unleashed a terrifying saber incantation to attack the demon corpse. Bright moon, starry night! 9 moons linked pearl! Bai Qiu supported the king's territory and the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness together, and enveloped the demonic corpse. This could be said to be an extremely shocking power. However, the demonic corpse was too strong. Even in the face of such a destructive attack, it still only needed 1 claw. Under the pressure of the rolling aura of death, everything was destroyed in an instant. No, I can't win, Bai Ziki said in a deep voice. This is a peak-level Wuxian supernatural being. It's difficult for us to shatter the mist of death around its body. Wuxian Crocodile said with some regret. Let's go, we really can't stop this thing. At this point, it suddenly got a shock. Damn it, this D*MN thing is charging over. How did it suddenly become so fast? In front of them, the aura of death was rolling. At this moment, the speed of the demonic corpse suddenly increased by more than 10 times. It pounced towards Wuxian Crocodile like a bolt of lightning, making it impossible for Wuxian Crocodile to dodge. Boom! At this moment, the hall suddenly shook, and a huge light dragon rushed out from the bottom of the stone chamber. With a bang, it swept away the demonic corpse that was pouncing towards Wuxian Crocodile, causing the Yin energy in the entire stone chamber to weaken. This is? Wuxian Crocodile was shocked, and so were Bai Qiu and the other 2. You guys step back, I'll do it alone. At this moment, Lin Tian spoke. At this moment, he put away the blood-red divine sword. Bright dragon patterns appeared under his feet, visible to the naked eye. Following the appearance of these dragon patterns, streams of immortal spiritual essence rushed out from the bottom of the stone chamber, quickly condensing into huge dragons. It was as if an invincible true dragon had been born. The power of the dragon burial scripture? Bai Ziki, the other 2, and Wuxian Crocodile were all shocked. Roar! In front of them, the demonic corpse roared, its pale face filled with ferocity. It waved its beast claws, and a vast evil aura of death pressed down on Lin Tian like a ray of death. At this moment, Lin Tian was very calm. The dragon patterns under his feet flickered slightly, and instantly, the huge dragons beside him moved together. Roar! The dragon's roar was ear-piercing. A total of 9 huge dragons rushed out, and with a bang, the demonic corpse was sent flying, crashing into the far end of the stone chamber. Lin Tian took a step forward. More and more dragons rushed out from the ground of the stone room, looking extremely majestic. The divine spiritual land here contained boundless mysteries, and it contained a heaven-shaking power. After the demonic corpse's corpse left the blood coffin at the core of the spiritual land, he was able to control this divine spiritual land very well. He could borrow the power of the divine spiritual land for his own use. At this moment, he used the dragon burial scripture to draw out this power. Roar! Not far away, the demonic corpse stood up again, and with a ruthless roar, it pounced on Lin Tian again. With a rumble, the death aura around its body became denser, and the evil aura surged, as if it wanted to devour everything. Facing this, Lin Tian was very calm. The dragon patterns under his feet spread, and rays of spiritual light rushed out, sweeping the demonic corpse away again. Drops of demonic corpse's blood dripped down from the sky. So powerful! Baiqiu opened his eyes wide. Just now, the terrifying demonic corpse that they couldn't stop even if they joined forces was now a complete mess in Lin Tian's hands. The dragon burial scripture can be considered as one of the most stunning divine techniques in this world. With this level of divine technique, as long as you are in a special place of heaven and earth, you can borrow the power of heaven and earth to fight for yourself. You are practically invincible. Fighting across two realms is as simple as eating and drinking. Wishing Crocodile sighed. At the end of the stone chamber, with a bang, the demonic corpse was swept away again, and one of its arms was crushed. Roar! Its appearance became sinister, and the aura around its body became even more ferocious. The death aura suddenly increased by several times. With a bang, the entire stone chamber shook, and an incomparably terrifying aura spread out rapidly. This fluctuation. Yang Qi frowned. At this moment, he couldn't help but frown. He was shocked by this aura. With this kind of death aura, even if an ordinary Wuxian expert was brushed by it, they would definitely be melted in an instant. Baiqiu, Bai Ziki, and Wishing Crocodile naturally also felt the terror of this death aura, and they all looked at Lin Tian. Roar! The demonic corpse let out a fierce roar again, and directly turned into a wave of death, fiercely pouncing towards Lin Tian. In an instant, with a crack, the void in the stone chamber collapsed bit by bit, and the stone chamber was instantly filled with cracks. Lin Tian looked ahead, and naturally could feel the terror of the demonic corpse at this moment, but his expression was very calm. Buzz! The dragon pattern on the soles of his feet became brighter, and a louder dragon roar vaguely sounded from below the stone chamber. Dragon roar, myriad dragons kill! He softly spat out 5 words. At this moment, he didn't hold anything back, and directly used the offensive secret skill of the dragon burial scripture. From the spiritual land of the gods, a dense mass of dragons was drawn out, and majestically flooded towards the demonic corpse that was pouncing towards him. Suddenly, the two terrifying forces collided with each other, and the death aura surged, and spiritual energy surged, covering everything. Soon, 10 breaths passed, and the dense mass of dragons became much fainter, and the death aura was directly suppressed. Poof! The demonic corpse let out an ear-piercing shriek, and directly exploded in front of him, splattering blood all over the stone chamber. Suddenly, the gloomy aura in the stone chamber became even weaker. It's done! Godspeed! Wishing Crocodile stared, and a peak Wuxian specter was actually killed by Lin Tian just like that. So strong! Baiqiu clenched her fists and stared at Lin Tian, her eyes full of starlight. In front of him, where the light of spiritual energy interweaved and the demonic corpse exploded, a fist-sized blood pellet floated in the air. It was sparkling and translucent, and at this moment, it was emitting an extremely dense aura of life, and even the fluctuations of the great Tao interweaved. A Wuxian spectre-level blood pellet! It can extend its life for at least 800 years. It can also be used to directly increase one's cultivation. Wishing Crocodile cried out. Baiqiu, Bai Ziki, and Yang Qi stared in front of them, and their expressions changed. The value of this fist-sized blood pellet was unimaginably high. Lin Tian stared in front of him, and was slightly astonished. He didn't expect that the demonic corpse would condense such a fist-sized blood pellet. This was a good thing, and it was very difficult to condense it. However, he thought about it again. This was a god's spiritual land, and the demonic corpse was buried in the core of the spiritual land when it was alive. It was normal for it to be able to produce such a blood pellet. With a thought, the light of the dragon marks intertwined and grabbed the blood pill. After a pause, the dense dragon marks wrapped around the blood pill. Then, he took out a small jade bottle and carefully placed the blood pill in it. After that, he put it away. Okay, we can search the blood coffin. I wonder what good things are inside. The 5 Elements crocodile was rather excited. It flapped its wings and flew over. It used the Tao laws of the 5 elements to conjure a 5-colored hurricane. It dispersed the pitch-black deathly mist in the blood coffin, exposing the inside of the coffin. Immediately, the 4 people and the crocodile were startled. Empty? Baichio stared. The black fog in the blood coffin was completely swept away by Wishing Crocodile. At this time, as far as the eye could see, the coffin was empty. Not to mention any treasures, not even a strand of hair could be seen. Wishing Crocodile also stared. That can't be. That bastard really only buried his own body inside? It stared at the empty blood coffin, feeling somewhat depressed. Chapter 879. The engravings were imprinted inside the coffin lid. No matter how one looked at it, it was very unusual. Lin Tian walked over and flipped the lid over. Suddenly, the mysterious engravings were completely exposed to the group of people. What is this? Wishing Crocodile was slightly stunned. Baichio and the other 2 also came forward. There were a total of 5 engravings as far as the eye could see. The first one was a vast mountain and river, which seemed to be a miniature version of this immortal mansion world. The second engraved a large mountain range. Immortal plants were tall and straight, strange birds and fierce beasts were galloping, and demonic auras were rolling. The third engraved a cave abode. Outside the cave abode, treasure lights were shining, and it was peaceful. The fourth engraved a sky full of runes and seals, which seemed to be extremely tyrannical. The fifth engraved 2 figures sitting cross-legged opposite each other. The figures were very blurry, and their faces could not be seen clearly. However, they exuded an aura that suppressed the world in peace. One of them was surrounded by the moon, and the other was surrounded by chaos. Seeing this, the 4 people and the crocodile were all shocked, and their expressions changed. This is... Wishing Crocodile could not help but tremble. Even someone as strong as Lin Tian was shocked at this moment, and his eyes flickered slightly. This was only an engraving, but it was vivid and lifelike. The 2 figures sitting cross-legged facing each other seemed to be real. Even though it was only the light of Tai-Yin and light of primal chaos in the engraving, it shocked him. He felt a chill run down his spine, and his heart couldn't help but twitch. Beside him, the others were even more shocked. Even the usually calm Baiziki was no exception. The few of them were speechless for a while. After a while, Wishing Crocodile, the old monster, said with a slightly trembling voice, If Master Crocodile is not wrong, the 2 figures in the engraving should be the 2 rumored celestial lords who entered this immortal mansion world, Celestial Lord Tai-Yin and Celestial Lord Chaos. As it spoke, it added, Moreover, this tomb owner must have seen the 2 celestial lords sitting opposite each other in the engraving. Otherwise, this engraving would not have such an artistic conception. This tomb owner saw Celestial Lord Tai-Yin and Celestial Lord Chaos at close range in his life. How is that possible? The legendary 9 celestial sovereigns, they existed in an era that was countless years ago. Was this tomb owner from the same era as those 9 people? No matter how I look at it, it doesn't look like it. Looking at this engraving, it's at most a few thousand years old. Baichio glared at him. The 6 engravings in the coffin lid and the history of this tomb was at most a few thousand years, but the 9 celestial venerables had existed for far longer than this period of time. If one really wanted to trace back, it would have to be at least 600,000 years ago, or even 1,000,000 years ago. How could the tomb owner have seen such ancient sages several thousand years ago? In the history of the 10 Directions celestial realm, no one had been able to live for 600,000 years. Even the best life-prolonging divine pill could only extend one's lifespan by 100,000 years. After all, the pill would lose its effect the second time. Otherwise, a cultivator could achieve immortality by simply using the life-prolonging Baodan. In that case, the 9 celestial lords could only live for 200,000 years at most. Even if they used a special secret technique to suppress their bodies, it was impossible for them to live for hundreds of thousands of years. In other words, it was impossible for the tomb owner to see such a character. There are words below, Wishing Crocodile suddenly said. Lin Tian and the others looked over and saw that there was indeed a line of ancient words at the bottom of the coffin. The great Tao evolved into a restriction. I'm afraid it will dissipate after 1,000 years. However, my lifespan is coming to an end. I have no chance to comprehend the supreme immortal Tao. Sad. Lin Tian read it out and deeply felt the loneliness in this sentence. Immediately, the group was moved. This sentence contained the tomb owner's loneliness and obsession. At the same time, it contained many other things when combined with the 5 engravings. The group moved on from the first engraving to the 5th engraving. Then, Baiziki said in a deep voice, "It should be like this. Thousands of years ago, the tomb owner accidentally found a cave dwelling in a large mountain range in this immortal mansion world. After entering it, he found that there were many talisman Dao seals blocking the way. Then, he broke these seals while moving forward. Not long after, he saw the shadows of Celestial Lord Taiyin and Celestial Lord Hun Dun from afar and felt the supreme immortal essence. However, at this time, the talisman Dao seals blocking the way ahead were too strong. The talisman Dao seals were too strong." Baiziki pointed to the line of words inside the coffin lid and said, "At that time, the tomb owner speculated that the talisman Dao seals and restrictions in the cave dwelling were evolved from the great Dao and would dissipate after 1,000 years. However, his lifespan was coming to an end at that time. Obviously, he had far less than 1,000 years to live. He couldn't really enter the core of the cave dwelling and could only leave with regrets. In the end, before he died, he engraved these pictures inside the coffin lid and left the world with loneliness." Hearing Baiziki's words, the group nodded slightly. This speculation should be very reasonable. In this case, these 5 engravings should be the tomb owner's most precious things when he was alive. Before he died, he engraved them inside the coffin lid and kept looking at them until his death. His obsession is really amazing. No wonder he turned into a demonic corpse in the end. Lin Tian now. It wasn't easy for a living being to turn into a Yin ghost, evil spirit, or evil spirit after death. Even if this was a god's spiritual land, it wasn't that easy. He could imagine that the tomb owner was able to turn into a demon corpse mainly because of his obsession with that immortal cave. Baichio whispered, we still don't know if the tomb owner saw the real bodies of the 2 celestial lords. Little girl, you are so careless. Who cares if what he saw was the real bodies of the celestial lords? It's not important anymore. Whooshing Crocodile's eyes lit up, and it was very excited. Now, although we don't know if the 2 shadows the tomb owner saw were the real bodies of the Grand Yin Celestial and the Primal Chaos Celestial, what we can be sure of is that the cave dwelling is definitely not ordinary. The legendary Celestial Lord treasure of this immortal estate world should be in that cave dwelling. It stared at the 5 engravings inside the coffin lid and seemed to be even more excited. It continued, "And now, all the clues about the cave dwelling's location are gathered here. We can find it immediately. Moreover, according to the words left behind by the tomb owner, after so many thousands of years, the runes and restrictions in the cave should have mostly dissipated. Even if there are still restrictions, they definitely won't be that strong. With our strength, we can definitely break through them. At that time, all the Celestial Lord treasures in the cave dwelling will jump into our pockets." Hearing this, Baichio's eyes widened. Her eyes suddenly lit up, and she looked very surprised. "Yes. It's really like that." She clenched her fists again. Even Lin Tian, Baiziki, and Yang Qi were moved. When they heard Whooshing Crocodile's words, their eyes lit up. "Let's go!" Lin Tian was very direct. He used the 4-symbol seal to erase the 5 engravings inside the coffin lid to prevent other cultivators from seeing them. Then, he immediately walked out of the stone room. "Go, go, go!" Whooshing Crocodile was very excited. It flapped its wings and jumped onto Lin Tian's head. Baichio followed beside Lin Tian. Baiziki and Yang Qi also followed. This immortal estate world was very vast, and the cave dwelling was very hidden and extremely difficult to find. However, now that they had obtained 5 engravings in the great tomb of the demon sage, they knew the specific location of the cave dwelling. It would be very easy to find it. according to Wishing Crocodile, as long as they found and entered the cave, the celestial lord treasures inside would belong to them. This could be said to be an unexpected treasure trove. These 5 engravings are even more valuable than holy weapons. They walked out of the stone room at a very fast speed. They followed the path they came from and headed for the surface. Roar! Inside the hall, there were many demons and monsters. They let out ear-piercing roars and lunged madly at the group of people. Lin Tian summoned a divine weapon, Blood Sword, and directly unleashed a sword beam that reached the heavens. The dense golden sword beam swept forward like a wave, and all the evil spirits that were brushed by it were instantly minced into pieces by that terrifying sword beam. In this way, about 2 hours later, the group reappeared on the surface of the ground along the path they came from. According to the records of the 5 engravings, the cave dwelling should be at the southeast end of this immortal estate world. Lin Tianandao said. Yes. Let's rush over, Wishing Crocodile said. Bai Ziki also said. We have to be fast, but we also have to conceal our aura. It's best not to let anyone discover us. Their group is now extremely famous in the 5th heaven. If they are discovered, it will cause a lot of trouble. Lin Tian nodded. Let's go! They left this place, deliberately avoiding all the cultivators who have entered this immortal estate world. They even avoided the native monster beasts of this immortal estate world. They carefully hid their figures, and at the same time, their speed was extremely fast, heading towards the southeast end. Soon, 14 hours passed. At this time, the group of people entered a large mountain range according to the records of the 5 carvings in the blood-colored coffin lid. Then, after another hour, they found an immortal's cave. Outside the cave, there were strands of immortal light surrounding it. This immortal light is very extraordinary. It contains the aura of the Great Tao. Even ordinary Great Tao powerhouses can hardly see it. Only those with peerless aptitude and super strength can capture this immortal light. The terrain looks ordinary, but there is a vague feeling of a pilgrimage of 10,000 immortals. Lin Tian's eyes flashed with light. In this place, the surroundings of the cave dwelling didn't seem to be a big deal on the surface, but the aura contained inside surprised him. It was as if there were 10,000 true dragons lying inside. Quick! Go in! Wishing Crocodile urged. Lin Tian nodded. Immediately, 4 people and 1 crocodile quickly entered the cave dwelling. The air in the cave dwelling was a little dry, but the aura was very abundant, and the light wasn't dim. After the group walked for about 10 meters, they found a humanoid ancient beast sitting cross-legged in front of them. It has been dead for a long time, and its body seemed to turn into ashes at the slightest touch, but its expression was serene and solemn. It seems that it has been guarding this cave dwelling since its life. This ancient beast was at least a Wuxian monster god when it was alive, but it was actually willing to guard this cave dwelling until its death. Chapter 880. Lin Tian and the others were shocked. A demon god at the Enlightenment realm, needless to say, could definitely suppress a region, but it was willing to silently guard this cave abode. As expected of a place related to the ancient celestial lords. The group could only sigh. The time of death is too long ago, and it's difficult to trace back. There are no traces of battle around, so it should have died before the previous tomb owner found this place. His lifespan should have dried up until he died, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian and the others didn't care about this. They paused for a moment, then continued to walk deeper into the cave abode. As the group walked forward, the spirit light in the air gradually became denser. Vaguely, there seemed to be colorful butterflies flapping their wings in the air, and there seemed to be little fairies dancing in the air. It was strange and hazy, and it was both illusory and real. It's like we're on the way to the legendary celestial world, Bai Chio muttered. The 4 people and the crocodile were more or less careful. Their steps were not slow, but not fast either. They were relatively gentle and cautious. The cave abode's passage was very wide, at least a few dozen feet long, and the height was also very shocking. After the group walked for about 100 breaths, a little light suddenly flashed in front of them. It was all kinds of runes and light seals. There's the aura of Tao, and it's very strong. This should be the restriction that evolved from the tomb owner's so-called Tao. It's not too strong. The group's eyes lit up. The rune imprint in front of them was faint, and there were fluctuations of Tao intertwined. It was extraordinary, but the aura was not very strong. It was as if a raging fire had burned to the end and was about to be extinguished. According to the words left by the tomb owner, these rune imprints should be the result of weakened a lot now. Baiziki said. Lin Tian nodded and supported the Sun Heart Sutra. It was very easy to move forward in such a dense rune imprint. The other three people and the crocodile also supported the Heart Sutra of the ancient sutra. Faint light intertwined outside their bodies as they slowly moved forward. Buzz! The light around the four people and the crocodile intertwined. All kinds of rune imprints jumped in the air as if they were moving forward in a sea of light. As they moved forward, many stalks of grass grew on the road leading into the cave. There was a faint light flowing on their surface, and there were even wisps of fragrance intertwined. These grasses were originally just ordinary grasses, but because of the runes in the air, each of them has an additional immortal aura. Wishing Crocodile said. The group of people propped up their respective ancient scriptures and traversed through the sky full of runes and seals. Not long after, Lin Tian slightly paused. Interweaving dragon patterns in his right hand, he broke open a corner of the ground and grabbed a sparkling and translucent immortal lingjing from below. It weighed at least 5 jin. Over there, the spirit-nurturing stamen! Baichio gazed forward. He raised his hand and grabbed a 4-leaf purple flower. This was a type of precious medicine that had the effects of strengthening one's divine senses. In fact, the effect of an ordinary spirit-nourishing stamen that could strengthen one's divine senses was not shocking. However, this spirit-nourishing stamen here was not ordinary. This was because it had grown for too long, at least more than 3,000 years. As a result, the power it contained far exceeded that of an ordinary spirit-nourishing stamen. It was a rare treasure even for a cultivator at the peak of the Great Path. Inside the cave, the light of runes lingered, and Tao patterns flickered. The group cautiously moved forward. Not long after, they found more treasures. Ordinary lingjing, immortal lingjing, precious medicines, precious treasures, and so on. Moreover, they were all very valuable. Gradually, as the group went deeper and deeper, the rune imprints in the air became more and more powerful. It was also at this time that a line of words appeared on the ground in front of them. It was slightly bold, and there was a demonic aura flowing around it. Turi Demon Saint's regret is here. Lin Tian read it out loud and said, This handwriting seems to have a history of several thousand years. The aura on it is the same as the aura of the tomb owner from before. It should have been left behind by the tomb owner. At that time, when it came here, it was blocked by the rune restriction evolved by the Great Tao. It was unable to go deeper into the cave. That tomb owner is called Turi Demon Saint? Turi? Baichio muttered. Why isn't it Tu as in massacre? Lin Tian glanced at her speechlessly. This girl's subconscious was really violent. She could even associate this with the word massacre. When that Turi Demon Saint was still alive, it should have been a very powerful existence even in the Nirvana realm. Back then, when it came here, it could no longer resist the rune restriction in the air. Now, we don't feel the slightest bit of pressure when we come here, the wishing crocodile said with some emotion. It said, Time really has weakened everything. Lin Tian glanced at it. Don't be so emotional. It doesn't match your ruffian style. I'm not used to it. Damn you, get lost! The wishing crocodile cursed. Lin Tian rolled his eyes. Then, he took a step forward and continued to walk forward. The number of rune imprints in the cave was truly shocking. Every inch of the void was intertwined with rune imprints. The closer they got to the depths of the cave, the stronger the rune imprints in the air became. After walking for a while, the group gradually felt the pressure. Lin Tian used the golden divine light to protect his body. Step by step, he walked deeper into the cave. At this time, it was as if he was walking in mud. It was more strenuous to walk than before. In the blink of an eye, another 15 minutes passed. At this time, the rune imprints in front of them became extremely dense. The light was even more dazzling. A shocking aura spread out. "It feels like we're walking with a mountain on our head," Baichio muttered. At this time, the group felt the real pressure. The rune imprints in front of them were too terrifying. Even someone as powerful as Lin Tian felt like he was sailing against the current. "Use spells to open a path," Lin Tian Andao. He supported the Sun Heart Sutra while using the Heaven High Sword technique. He used the golden Heaven High Sword radiance to cut open the rune imprints one by one. This way, it was more or less easier to walk. Soon, the group walked very far away. The pressure became even greater. At this time, a large rock in front of them suddenly moved. It shook the sand and dust on the ground. It turned into a stone giant that was close to 10 feet tall. The aura of Tao is too strong. It actually allowed an ordinary rock to cultivate into a Tao fruit? Whooshing Crocodile stared. The stone giant's body was tall and straight. It stared at Lin Tianyi and the others. It directly swung its huge stone fist and punched down fiercely. Lin Tian walked at the front. At this time, he clenched his fist and met it. The two collided with a loud bang. Both of them took a step back. "It's very strong. It's comparable to a half-step enlightenment expert," Lin Tian said. Then, he continued, "It's lacking intelligence. Let's attack together. Don't waste time." As soon as he finished speaking, he directly supported the reincarnation diagram. Boom! 1. Baiziki supported the Divine Roar Palace. Baichio supported the Starry Sky Moon. On the other side, Yang Qi and Wishing Crocodile also used their own great divine abilities. They turned into a destructive torrent that pressed down on the stone giant. With a bang, the stone giant was blasted away and retreated several feet. Again. Lin Tian now. He stepped forward. Sword light scattered, and the reincarnation diagram pressed down again. Although this stone giant did not have intelligence, it was still comparable to a half-step enlightenment cultivator. It was not that easy to kill. The group each supported their own tyrannical methods. Techniques and spells majestically fell forward. Bam! Once again, the stone giant was blasted away. Cracks appeared on its tall stone body. At this time, Lin Tian used the yin-yang roar. With each step, he left afterimages. In a flash, he closed in on the stone giant and punched it. Boom! He used all of his physical strength for this punch. His fist seemed to have turned into a blazing golden sun as it viciously landed on the stone golem's body. With a crack, the stone giant trembled violently and was directly blasted into pieces. It turned into a pile of stone debris and no longer moved. He blasted a half-step enlightenment cultivator into pieces with one punch. His physical body is crazy, Baichio muttered. Lin Tian put away the divine sword and continued forward. Sword light continued to scatter, slashing one rune after another. In the blink of an eye, more than 4 hours had passed. At this time, the group was infinitely close to the depths of the cave. Suddenly, they all trembled and looked ahead in shock. Not far ahead, there was a stone wall. In front of the wall, 2 figures sat facing each other. One of them had the light of the moon intertwined. Tao light floated around him. It was as if the world was revolving around this person. The aura was terrifying. Opposite him, the other person had the light of the chaotic halo. Strands of Tao light fell from the sky. It was mysterious and powerful. It was difficult to see the faces of these 2 figures, but they were like 2 gods. The group felt numb on their backs and their hearts palpitated. Heavenly Venerables! This aura! It's definitely 2 heavenly venerables. It's exactly the same as what's recorded in the coffin lid. Whooshing Crocodile trembled. Heavenly venerables tie-in and chaotic heavenly venerables? Baichio was shocked. The coffin lid recorded things from thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, these 2 heavenly venerables were here. After thousands of years, they're actually still here? Whooshing Crocodile was also puzzled. Two figures were sitting cross-legged in front of them. They were talking about something from time to time. Unfortunately, the group could not hear anything. They could only see a shocking Tao light surrounding the two figures. It was as if it could easily destroy a vast world. They seemed to be deducing and verifying their own Tao and Tao, Bai Ziki said. He did not care about Bai Chio's question. That's it. Yang Qi nodded. His eyes were full of divine light as he stared straight ahead. In front of the stone wall, the two figures were hazy, but there were all kinds of treasure lights flying around them. Vaguely, the group felt that there were many great Tao manifesting there, and they were like children surrounding the two figures. Two of the 9 heavenly venerables from countless years ago are actually deducing and discussing their own Tao and Tao here? Bai Chio was shocked. As far as the eye could see, there were precious herbs growing around the stone wall. They were at least thousands of years old. There were also some rare immortal jades with amazing value. Even Wuxian experts would be excited when they saw them. However, at this time, the group's eyes were completely attracted by the two figures in front of the stone wall. There was no room for anything else in their field of vision. At that place, the two figures seemed to be deducing their own Taos and techniques. Divine light interweaved around them, and strands of Tao radiance coiled around them. All sorts of phenomena appeared, and they were either profound or possessed shocking auras. Chapter 881. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Hearing Lin Tian's words, Bai Chio and the other two, as well as Wuxian Crocodile, were all shocked. The two heavenly venerables in front of the stone wall were just phantoms. Staring ahead, the three of them and the crocodile each operated their divine senses to the limit and stared seriously. Then, after a few breaths, they were all moved. It really doesn't seem to be real, Wuxian Crocodile said with a strange light in his eyes. This? Lord Crocodile knows. Back then, the two heavenly venerables deduced Tao and techniques here and left an indelible Tao mark in the long river of time and space. That should be the case. Lin Tian Andao. Almost as soon as he finished speaking, the two figures in front of the stone wall suddenly dissipated and disappeared in an instant. Only wisps of Tao light and immortal light were still intertwined there. The group was moved and showed a look of regret. After all, this was the imprint of the two heavenly venerables deducing Tao and techniques. If they could observe it for a while, they would definitely gain a lot. But now, it had dissipated just like that. In front of them, immortal light spots and various Tao light intertwined. Suddenly, traces of patterns flowed on the stone wall. That is? Lin Tianwei was shocked. Dragon pattern light intertwined in her eyes, and her sea of consciousness was boiling. Looking at the stone wall, she suddenly saw faint and dense traces of Tao patterns. At the same time, Bai Ziki and the other two, as well as Wuxian Crocodile, also noticed this. All of them were shocked. In the past, the two heavenly venerables deduced and discussed their respective Tao and techniques in front of the stone wall. All kinds of Tao intertwined, and all kinds of strange phenomena appeared. Not only did it cause the Tao in this place to evolve rune restrictions, but it also left all kinds of indestructible Tao marks on the stone wall. Perhaps the essence of the two heavenly venerables' Tao and techniques are preserved here. This is a peerless treasure. Wuxian Crocodile was extremely excited. Lin Tian was also a little excited. He stared at the stone wall in front of him and said, "Let's go! Let's go!" OM. He directly supported the reincarnation diagram, and he used this king's region to open up a path. He broke through the strands of talisman markings and restrictions before him, and he strode towards the stone wall. Bai Chio, the other two, and the Wuxian Crocodile followed closely behind. After breaking through the rune seals, they quickly arrived at the stone wall. Of course, in the process of advancing to the front of the stone wall, the group of people all around collected all kinds of precious medicinal herbs and other treasures. The stone wall was huge and rough, but at this time, the four people and the alligator all had strange light in their eyes. They stared at the stone wall as if they were staring at a heavenly treasure. As far as the eye could see, the surface of the stone wall was faintly glowing, and strands of marks of the Tao were branded on it, causing it to seem deep and vast. Buzz! Suddenly, a thick divine light appeared around Bai Qiu's body. His lunar origin lit up on its own. The light was extremely strong. Lin Tian and the others were shocked. They turned their heads and saw that Bai Qiu was a little stunned at this time. His eyes were confused as he stared at the stone wall in front of him. It was as if he had fallen into an illusion. Back then, Lord Taiyin and Lord Chaos were deducing the Tao here. Half of the marks on the stone wall belonged to Lord Taiyin. The five elements crocodile opened his mouth and stared at Bai Qiu. This girl has the Taiyin physique, the same physique as the Taiyin Heavenly Lord. Although their auras are not at the same level, their auras are very similar. Now, the marks left by the Taiyin Heavenly Lord on the stone wall seemed to resonate with her Taiyin origin, causing her to comprehend something instantly. As it said this, it had an envious expression. Maybe we can get a great opportunity. Lin Tiandao was happy for Bai Qiu. After saying this, he took a deep breath and calmed himself down. Then, he turned around and looked at the stone wall in front of him seriously. Lord Crocodile also wants a great opportunity. Taiyin Treasure Technique, Chaos Divine Technique, all come to Lord Crocodile. Whooshing Crocodile howled. Bai Ziki and Yangqi stood on one side, each channeling the ancient scriptures. Divine light intertwined in their eyes as they stared ahead. For a moment, the four people and one crocodile were shining with dazzling divine light. Their eyes reflected the Tao patterns. Buzz! The golden divine light outside Lin Tian's body was hazy. The yin-yang lotus sea in his sea of consciousness swayed at this moment, releasing strands of yin and yang light. Strands of divine consciousness intertwined. Half of them circled around him, while the other half moved toward the stone wall. All kinds of ancient runes and marks of Tao intertwined on the stone walls. Yi Futian's divine sense circled around and instantly sensed an extremely dense Tao connotation, which was much stronger than the Tao connotation left behind by the Imperial Emperor in the Celestial Palace of Death. Feeling this dense Tao connotation, his powerful Great Path body couldn't help but tremble. He forced himself to calm down and guided his divine consciousness. With the help of this heavenly supreme level Tao connotation, he could deduce and understand his own Great Path precepts. Buzz! The Heart Sutra of the Sun slowly circulated. Golden light shone on his body. Strands of divine consciousness were turbulent. The Great Path precepts in his body seemed to have awakened from a deep sleep. They surged slightly, and the frequency of surging became more and more intense. After that, his divine sense became illusory, and he appeared in that vast world once more. Numerous mountains stood before him, numerous great streams surged, and it was hazy yet familiar. Strands of light of the Tao interweaved in every corner of this world. This time, he didn't explore exactly what his grand Tao was, and he stood silently in this world instead. He closed his eyes to sense everything in this world, and he allowed the wind to blow, the sun to shine upon him, and the rain to rain upon him. As usual, time passed quickly in this hazy world. The sun rose and set, the 4 seasons alternated, and various scenes changed one by one. Buzz! Gradually, in the real world, the golden light outside his body became more dazzling, and the aura of the Great Path became stronger. With the help of the Heavenly Master level Taoist connotation intertwined on the stone wall, he silently deduced his own Taoist connotation, causing his Taoist connotation to flourish. His essence, qi, and spirit were rapidly improving. His cultivation was also constantly rising at an astonishing speed. Not only him, but Bai Ziki and the others' auras also became much stronger. Their Great Path precepts became more powerful, and their cultivation also increased rapidly. After all, this was the Tao connotation left behind by 2 ancient celestial lords who mutually deduced their Great Path. It could be said to be a sea of Tao fruit. It was very useful to them. At this time, the 4 people and the crocodile were all immersed in this Tao connotation. They silently deduced and comprehended it wholeheartedly. Gradually, the 5 different lights became more and more powerful. Just like that, 2 months passed in the blink of an eye. Boom! On this day, a vast divine power rushed out of Lin Tian's body. Then, the golden divine light and great path radiance outside his body became much stronger. Compared to 2 months ago, there was a huge improvement. His blood and qi became more vigorous. The Tao radiance in his eyes intertwined, and the light mist was hazy. He clenched his fist slightly and felt that there was an inexhaustible strength in his body. 5th tier of the Great Path, he whispered to himself. The Tao connotation of a celestial lord was too shocking. He had been meditating in front of the stone wall for 2 months. At this moment, he broke through again. He stepped from the 4th tier of the Great Path to the 5th tier of the Great Path. His physical body became stronger, his origin source became brighter, and his Tao precepts became more vigorous. Boom! 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 Beside him, 3 powerful auras rushed up. Almost at the same time, the whooshing crocodile, Bai Ziki, and Yang Qi broke through one after another. They had all stepped into the 4th tier of the Great Path. The whooshing crocodile howled. Strands of demonic light intertwined outside his body. The Tao precepts of the 5 elements became much stronger. He seemed very excited. Then, the 3 people and the crocodile all turned their heads to look at Baiqiu. The light of moon surrounding Baiqiu's body became more intense. Her eyes became somewhat hazy and deep. Strands of Tao patterns jumped around in them. At this time, her cultivation did not improve much. However, her great path fluctuations were much stronger. Moreover, her origin source was emitting a thick light. This girl is probably the biggest winner here. She might even create a celestial lord ancient scripture. The whooshing crocodile stared at him. Lin Tian nodded. It's very possible. At this time, Baiqiu was obviously in a strange situation. She must be merging with the various Tao patterns that the Heavenly Lord of Taiying left here. It could be said that this was an amazing opportunity. He took a deep breath, turned his head, and continued to look at the stone wall in front of him. He extended his divine perception and seriously tried to comprehend it again. There are more things on this stone wall, he muttered to himself. Golden divine light intertwined on the surface of his body. His divine perception lingered around the stone wall, sweeping through every corner and looking at every Tao pattern. These Tao patterns jumped and flickered like generals from the celestial world. Their auras were extremely powerful and shocking. Suddenly, his sea of consciousness boiled. The yin-yang lotus sea swayed violently. Strands of yin and yang surged, forming a light fog. Lin Tian's body shook. At this moment, he stared at the stone wall in front of him. He felt that one of the stone walls had become extremely bright. There seemed to be a chaotic spring there. He saw fist shadows emerging from it. They were direct, domineering, and peerless. His divine perception was quickly drawn over. Then, his body shook again. He felt that these fist shadows seemed to contain some kind of shocking profundity, causing his hands to move involuntarily. At this time, his eyes seemed a little deep and hazy, as if he was absent-minded. His hands shook slightly, and he brandished his fists according to the fist shadows that emerged from the spring of chaos, shaking out fist radiance one after another beside him. Roar! As he waved these fist shadows, the sound of a celestial phoenix seemed to be faintly heard in this cave-dwelling space. Then, in the next moment, a hazy fire phoenix rushed out from behind him. It was completely condensed from divine power. Its wings flapped gently, and divine light filled the sky as if it could tear everything apart. Roar! A dragon's roar shook the earth. After the celestial phoenix, a real dragon tens of thousands of feet long condensed beside him. The dragon's scales were dazzling, and its divine power was impressive. It was as if the emperor of the real dragons had been reborn. Its power was so vast that it seemed to be able to easily destroy a macro world. For a moment, the real dragon and the celestial phoenix circled around each other. The entire cave-dwelling space shook and rumbled. All kinds of treasure lights rushed up, penetrating through the cave-dwelling space and into the sky. Moreover, this was not the end. As he brandished his fist according to the fist shadows he saw on the stone wall with his divine sense, more and more divine shadows appeared around him. Powerful auras constantly impacted the cave abode, shocking Baiziki and the others to the point they all turned their heads to look over. Boy Lin, what are you doing? Why are you making such a big scene? It will alarm the other cultivators in this immortal world. Whooshing Crocodile could not help but shout. Chapter 882. Genius remembers love in 1 second divided by little? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Lin Tian's entire body was surrounded by golden light as he waved his fist in front of the stone wall. His tyrannical aura was vast and mighty in this immortal's cave. Whooshing Crocodile, Baiziki, and Yang Qi were shocked. This kind of aura was too shocking, and the commotion it created was too big. Little. Whooshing Crocodile opened its mouth again, but after saying the word, little, it didn't say anything else. At this time, it wanted to wake Lin Tian up, because if Lin Tian continued to make such a commotion, it wouldn't be long before other cultivators who entered this immortal world would be alerted, and all cultivators would rush over. That was obviously not a good thing. However, when it saw Lin Tian wholeheartedly waving his fist, it stopped what it was going to say. It saw that Lin Tian should have comprehended some kind of supreme ancient technique from the stone wall, and his mind was completely immersed in it. If it was forcefully interrupted at this time, it was hard to say whether Lin Tian could comprehend this kind of ancient technique from the stone wall a second time. It was very likely that he would fail at the last step. If that really happened, for Lin Tian, the loss would be too great. On! Roar! The phoenix's cry was moving, and the dragon's cry was world-shaking. All kinds of strange phenomena rose and fell around Lin Tian. Lin Tian closed his eyes at some unknown time, and only his tyrannical divine sense was still intertwined in this space. He was completely immersed in the realm of forgetting everything, and only an obscure and profound divine technique's profound meaning slowly emerged. At this moment, his aura seemed to be somewhat fierce, and there was a kind of domineering aura, and a kind of indomitable madness. All kinds of strange phenomena intertwined around him. Immortal phoenixes soared into the sky, true dragons circled, and all kinds of strange phenomena seemed to be real. Dong! He lightly shook his right fist in the haze. Immediately, the void trembled, and strands of Tao traces appeared. He withdrew his right fist and swung his left. In an instant, the ground under his feet suddenly cracked open, and dense immortal light rushed out. The scene was somewhat frightening, and both Baiziki and Yang Qi were shocked. He's evolving an invincible fist technique, Baiziki said in a deep voice. Love go little say network outside of Lin Tian's body. The golden divine light became even more intense. He closed his eyes slightly and only vibrated his fist will. Streams of fist light gushed out from his hands, as if a supreme celestial lord was performing a wondrous punch, causing the void around him to rumble. The void cracked and then reformed, as if it was splitting open the sky and earth. Such a scene was truly terrifying. Even an old monster like Whooshing Crocodile couldn't help but gasp in shock. At the same time, even Bai Qiu, who was immersed in some kind of unparalleled wonderful state not far away, trembled slightly. What kind of fist technique did he comprehend from the stone wall? This level of fist intent is simply enough to shatter the heavens and earth. Even Yang Qi, who had always been taciturn, was deeply shaken. Thump! The void trembled as if a divine drum had been beaten. The battle formation was so amazing that even the Tao sound resounded, causing the traces of Tao patterns on the stone wall to faintly resonate and become clearer. Baiziki, Bai Qiu, and Whooshing Crocodile were shocked again. They stared at Lin Tian, their eyes filled with shock. Forget it! This movement can be as big as it wants. Anyway, more than 2 months have passed. I estimate that the cultivators who entered this space are about to dig out this celestial lord's cave mansion. After all, more than 90% of the cultivators who entered this space are here for the celestial lord's treasure. Whooshing Crocodile bared his teeth and said, Now let's comprehend it ourselves. Maybe we can also dig out 2 or 3 celestial lords' divine techniques from this stone wall. Even if we can't, our cultivation can still improve a little. Ziki agreed with this and immediately stopped talking. He mobilized all his divine senses and paid more attention to the stone wall in front of him. The Celestial Lord's divine technique! Come to Lord Crocodile! Whooshing Crocodile roared in a low voice. Yang Qi looked at the stone wall in front of him and even vaguely mobilized the vision in his sea of consciousness to observe the stone wall with all his strength. For a time, the light around the 2 people and the crocodile became stronger, and their auras began to increase. The stone wall was branded with the Tao marks of the 2 ancient celestial lords, which were left by the 2 ancient celestial lords after they deduced and discussed their respective Taos and Dharma in front of the stone wall. Such Tao marks were too valuable for future cultivators. After the 2 people and the crocodile immersed themselves in comprehending the Tao marks, their cultivation began to improve again. At the same time, the Tao light around the 2 people and the crocodile became stronger. In the blink of an eye, they were immersed in their own cultivation. They were each comprehending the Tao marks. Their blood and qi were improving, and their divine senses were becoming stronger. The void around them was buzzing and trembling. However, compared to the scene in Lin Tian's place, this scene was too different. Boom! At this time, Lin Tian's eyes were still slightly closed. His hands were still forming fist will, and they collided gently with each other. Suddenly, the space around them seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. There was a power that could easily shatter heaven and earth. He only moved his hands and punched. His movements were very simple, but there was an invincible fist intent in his fists. Every time he punched, the world would tremble slightly. It was an extremely shocking scene. Boom! As he continued to throw out fist will, the void constantly shattered and reformed. Gradually, a dense vision appeared around him. It had already drowned him in it, making him look like a god. At the same time, his essence, energy, and spirit were also rising. His blood and qi became more and more vigorous, like an ancient furnace that had been ignited. Boom! He moved his right fist. Vaguely, a primeval immortal phoenix moved with his right fist. Then, it went against the sky. It was like a phoenix striking the sky. It was majestic. In the next moment, he moved his left fist. A real dragon let out a dragon's roar. The dragon's body coiled around his left arm. The dragon's head swallowed the dragon's light. It was like an ancient dragon emperor. Crack! With a crisp sound, the space directly collapsed. Strands of spatial turbulence flowed out. However, they dissipated in the next moment. They were shattered by the fist aura that he had created. It was like a water source that had been evaporated by the scorching heat. He stood on the spot while numerous complicated and profound talisman markings leaped about within his sea of consciousness. They were like numerous fists of light, and all of them were interweaved with fist Tao treasure insight that pressed forward courageously. They were like numerous heavenly exalts and emperors that laid across the sea of his divine sense, causing the profundities of the fist Tao to be completely revealed. It gradually became clear from the obscurity at the beginning, and it was like a strand of light had illuminated the darkness. Suddenly, Lin Tiandao's body shook. The movement of his fists became even more terrifying. Even his body began to move. He was no longer just moving his hands. At this moment, there was a celestial phoenix above his head and a true dragon circling around him. It made him seem like the legendary lord of the god realm. He had an invincible and peerless majesty. His mind was even more immersed in this fist will. He waved it to his heart's content. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, another 9 days had passed. On this day, Ziki, Yang Qi, and Wishing Crocodile woke up one after another. They had all gained something. Their essence, energy, and spirit had become stronger. Their cultivation had all reached the middle of the 4th heaven of the Great Path. They had all obtained other things from the stone wall. At this time, they didn't continue to observe the stone wall after waking up. It was because they couldn't comprehend anything by now. Thank heavens, no cultivators have found this place in these 9 days. Whooshing Crocodile felt a little relieved. Then, he looked at Lin Tian. This kid is still practicing that fist technique. It's even stronger. Yang Qi's words were simple. Not far away, Lin Tianwei closed her eyes slightly. She looked dignified. Beside her, the immortal phoenix flapped its wings, the vermilion bird soared into the sky, the true dragon circled, and the black tortoise expanded the sea. There were also all kinds of divine elephants of mountains and rivers. She looked like she was about to break through the void and become an immortal. This shocked Bai Ziki, Yang Qi, and Wishing Crocodile. It was hard to imagine what kind of fist technique Lin Tian was practicing. It could have such momentum and so many terrifying phenomena. It was really too terrifying. Boom! Following Lin Tian's fist intent, the void shook again. It was like the sound of thunder from the 9 heavens. Lin Tian swung his fists. There was no fixed fist form, and he could punch as he pleased. However, every punch carried a might that could destroy all things. He swung his fists with his heart, and the power of his fists was extremely strong and ferocious. With a rumbling sound, the space shook. Waves of immortal light were struck out. More and more cracks appeared on the ground. Just like this, 3 days quickly passed. On this day, the lunar light around Bai Qiu's body was extremely dense. Then, it gradually calmed down. Her cultivation had entered the 4th layer of the Grand Tao. Then, in the next moment, she woke up. Her entire body had a trace of lunar aura. The little girl finally woke up. How was it? How was it? Whooshing Crocodile looked over. Bai Qiu giggled with a proud and excited expression. I got a lunar ancient scripture. Hearing this, the 5 elements crocodile's eyes widened. Although he had already guessed that Bai Qiu might obtain an ancient scripture in this place, when he heard Bai Qiu say such words, he couldn't help but be a little surprised. Not bad, Bai Ziki said. It was rare for him to praise his sister. You have the same physique as the lunar heavenly lord. You can really get a huge harvest in this place. A lunar ancient scripture is priceless, Whooshing Crocodile said. Bai Qiu blinked and then muttered. But I only got the source cultivation technique for cultivation. I didn't get any divine abilities or secret techniques for battle. In response, Whooshing Crocodile couldn't help but roll his eyes. Little girl, you don't know how to be content. You can go home and burn incense to worship your ancestors to get such a heavenly lord level cultivation technique. Moreover, this was created by the lunar heavenly lord. It's compatible with your lunar imperial body. It's a real treasure for you. Cultivating this ancient scripture will allow your potential to be unearthed limitlessly. Boom! In front of them, there was a loud explosion. It shook the entire cave abode. Bai Qiu tilted her head and looked over. Her gaze landed on Lin Tian, who was brandishing his fists. She couldn't help but widen her eyes. He's... Looking at Lin Tian, at this moment she vaguely felt a fist that could crush heaven and earth. Chapter 883. Bai Qiu was truly shocked. She looked at Lin Tian, who was waving his fists with his eyes closed. She saw the natural phenomena around Lin Tian and felt the terrifying power of his fists. She felt her heart twitch a few times. An immortal phoenix circling around him, a true dragon circling around him, and legendary immortal spirits such as the vermilion bird and the black tortoise. This. Her eyes widened. You obtained the lunar ancient scripture. This guy is obviously quite lucky. He seems to have comprehended a supreme fist technique and has been practicing it for almost half a month. It's getting more and more terrifying. Needless to say, it's definitely a supreme ancient technique of the heavenly venerable level, Whooshing Crocodile said. Boom! In front of them, all kinds of phenomena intertwined around Lin Tian. His aura became more and more powerful, as if he had turned into a giant god. After nearly half a month of practice, his punching motion gradually slowed down, but the power was even more terrifying. With a slight movement, it caused the surrounding space to collapse, and strands of spatial turbulence poured out. His fists became less and less stylish, and they looked a little messy. However, these seemingly messy fists seemed to be tracing the path of Tao, and there was a faint flicker of Tao light. Boom! He slowly waved his fists, and the power of his fists surged. It was as if the heavenly tribulation was boiling, and as if the Tao was rumbling. It could be said that there were thousands of forms of energy. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days passed. On this day, he no longer waved his fists. His entire person calmed down, and he stood still on the spot, no longer moving. It's over? The group breathed a sigh of relief, and Baichio took a step forward. Boom! At this moment, with Lin Tian as the center, a vast bloodchi rushed up, and golden divine light shot into the sky, enveloping his divine consciousness, and condensing into 9 figures beside him. These 9 figures were exactly the same as him. In the next moment, they all moved, waving their divine fists around him, causing the surrounding space to creak, and everything seemed to be about to be shattered. The 9 figures swallowed mountains and rivers, and all of them were intertwined with a supreme spirit. They were incomparably domineering, and they looked like they were looking down on the world. They waved their fists, and there were faint streaks of blood-red lightning interweaving. Immortal phoenixes, true dragons, and other immortal spirits roared together. Wishing Crocodile's eyes widened. This brat. The might of this fist is even stronger. Furthermore, his cultivation has already reached the middle of the 5th firmament of the Great Tao and is still climbing, Baiziki said in a deep voice. What kind of boxing technique is this? Why is it so terrifying? Baichio was shocked and stopped himself from walking towards Lin Tian. On the other side, Yang Qi was a man of few words. He didn't say anything, but the shock on his face was hard to conceal. The group was too shocked. At this time, Lin Tian's aura was too strong, shocking everyone. Boom! By Lin Tian's side, 9 figures that were exactly the same as him swung their fists freely. They either looked down upon the world, had sharp gazes, were peerlessly domineering, or possessed peerless immortal bearings. They were like 9 supreme ancient emperors that had descended into the mortal world, and it was an astounding sight. Gradually, the speed at which the 9 figures beside him swung their fists became faster and faster. All kinds of visions intertwined, causing the cave abode to shine with all kinds of strange lights of the great path. The entire cave abode shook, and runes and seals appeared together. At this time, the cave seemed to have become one with him. In an instant, it became much brighter, and there was a rumbling sound. Then, in the next moment, as Lin Tian's aura became stronger and stronger, the light in the cave also shot into the sky. This light even broke through the restrictions of the cave and intertwined with a terrifying immortal might. It rushed into the sky again and didn't dissipate for a long time. It caused the monsters and beasts in the mountain where the cave was located to tremble, and they looked in the direction of the cave and trembled. At the same time, in this immortal cave world, many cultivators saw this scene. They saw immortal light hovering above a mountain for a long time, and they were all shocked. That is? I feel a divine essence, a very strong divine essence. Is there an earth-shattering treasure there? Is it the legendary treasure of the Celestial Venerate? Let's go there. Staring at the mountain where the Celestial Venerate's cave was located, in this immortal cave world, there was a strange light in the eyes of all the cultivators. They all moved at once, turning into streaks of lightning and rushing there. Roar! The cries of birds and the roars of beasts shook the sky. In the immortal cave world, some peerlessly powerful ancient monsters roared. At this moment, they also moved. Vast and surging demonic might, they went straight to the mountain where the Celestial Venerate's cave was located. All this was because Lin Tian's fist intent was too powerful. The immortal light hovered, and the divine charm intertwined, shocking all directions. In the Celestial Venerate's cave, Lin Tian was still standing quietly in the same place. Only the 9 figures were waving their fists around him, and all kinds of strange phenomena were hovering around him. The aura he exuded was getting stronger and stronger, and his cultivation was also surging like a wild horse. Damn, He's about to break into the sixth heaven of the great Tao. This kid is really abnormal. Wishing Crocodile was shocked, but soon he bared his teeth. However, the commotion he's caused at this time is really not small. There's no doubt that it has already alarmed the entire Immortal Cave world. I guarantee that a large group of cultivators will soon come to this place. Hurry up and comprehend it. Baiqiu clenched his fists. In front of him, the light of the great Tao floated around Lin Tian. His aura was extremely powerful. The 9 figures gradually became blurry. In the end, each of them let out a loud roar, and then turned into 9 rays of light that rushed into Lin Tian's body. Boom! In an instant, the aura he exuded rose again. Divine power rolled, and the great Tao's precepts surged. His vast blood chi boiled like a vast ocean, and the faint roar of a true dragon could be heard from within his body for a long time. Then, in the next moment, the light of the great Tao outside his body disappeared into his body. The vigorous blood chi was also absorbed. Only a faint golden light intertwined on the surface of his body. His entire person became extremely quiet in an instant, like an old pine tree. The peak of the 5th heaven of the great Tao. Just half a step away from the 6th heaven of the great Tao. Wishing Crocodile swallowed his saliva. Has he comprehended it? Baiqiu stared at Lin Tian. I'm not sure, but it should be about time, Bai Ziki said in a low voice. Yang Qi didn't say anything. He just fixed his gaze on Lin Tian. At this time, Lin Tian was like an old monk in meditation. He stood quietly in front of the stone wall, motionless. Even the golden light on the surface of his body was gradually absorbed. He was incomparably calm, and his posture was completely different from before. Baiqiu's group and Wishing Crocodile waited silently. In the blink of an eye, more than 18 hours had passed. Someone's coming in, Bai Ziki suddenly said. Almost as soon as his words fell, more than a dozen figures rushed into their field of vision. All of them had Tao Law fluctuations intertwined around their bodies. They were all powerful existences at the great Tao level. Even if they were at the great Tao level, they weren't weak. The weakest of them was at the 3rd heaven of the great Tao, and the strongest few were at the 7th heaven of the great Tao. When these people arrived, they immediately saw Lin Tian's group. All of them were shocked. After all, Lin Tian's group was now very famous in the 5th heaven. This was all because Lin Tian had killed several of Enlongjing's generals, killed Zhan Yuji, and destroyed one of Enlongjing's divine sense incarnations. At the same time, he also killed several young kings of the central region. It was impossible not to remember such a battle record. However, these cultivators saw the stone wall in front of them in the next moment. For a while they were shocked again. They all felt the mysterious traces of Tao on the stone wall. Suddenly, these cultivators all moved and quickly rushed towards the stone wall. Stop for Grandpa Crocodile! Wishing Crocodile roared at the group of cultivators, causing them to stop in their tracks. At this moment, Lin Tian was still standing in front of the stone wall quietly. He had no idea what was going on. Perhaps he was in the most critical moment of comprehending the technique, so he could not allow these people to rush over. It was extremely likely that they would disturb Lin Tian. If you want to comprehend the things on this stone wall, you can. But wait for a while, Bai Ziki said. Naturally, he knew why these great Tao cultivators rushed over. When Lin Tian really wakes up, they will leave. But at this time, if Lin Tian doesn't wake up, they will never let other cultivators get close to him. Who do you think you are? You want us to wait for a while, so we have to wait for a while? Don't block the way. Get out of the way. More than a dozen great Tao powerhouses had cold faces. Among them, a middle-aged man dressed in black had gloomy eyes. He glanced at Lin Tian standing quietly in front of the stone wall, then glanced at Bai Ziki's group of 3, and Wishing Crocodile, and sneered. Speaking of which, Enlongjing's spiritual consciousness incarnation, several generals, Zhan Yuji, and several young kings of the central region were all killed by that person alone. Among your group, only that person has terrifying combat power. You 3 and a monster beast aren't a big deal. Lin Tian and the others are now very famous in the 5th heaven, and many people know about them. However, this is all because Lin Tian has killed many powerhouses with high status. His tyrannical combat power has shocked many cultivators in this heaven. As for Bai Ziqi's group of 3 and Wishing Crocodile, after they stepped into the Great Tao realm, they have never been seen by the cultivators of the 5th heaven. Therefore, many cultivators in this heaven believe that the only truly terrifying person in this group is Lin Tianyi. This black-clothed middle-aged man clearly thought so, and his words made it clear. At this moment, this man stared at Bai Ziqi's group of 3 and Wishing Crocodile with extremely cold eyes. The person in front of the stone wall seems to be in a state of enlightenment, and can't take care of you. With just the 3 of you and a monster beast, you want to stop us? You are courting death. Chapter 884. Hearing the middle-aged man in black's words, the faces of Bai Ziqi and the others sank. This person's thoughts were really vicious. However, the other dozen or so great Tao powerhouses were slightly moved. They stared at Bai Ziqi's group of 3 and the Wishing Crocodile. Many of them narrowed their eyes slightly, and a few of them even had wisps of cold light in their eyes. They were obviously tempted. The middle-aged man in black naturally took in the expressions of these cultivators. At this time, he spoke again. "Since I'm the one who suggested it, then let me take the lead." As he spoke, he stared at Bai Ziqi's group of 3 and the Wishing Crocodile. He took a step forward with a sinister gaze. "When I cultivated to the Great Tao realm, you guys were still drinking milk. How dare you stop me? You're courting death." This person was at the 5th heaven of the Great Tao realm. He looked like a middle-aged man, but he had lived for more than 600 years. His cultivation was extremely solid. "Oh, little bastard, you're just a sesame seed. How dare you show off your cultivation qualifications in front of me?" The Wishing Crocodile sneered. It had lived for at least 1,000 years and cultivated for more than 1,000 years. This middle-aged man in black actually dared to say, "When I cultivated to the Great Tao realm, you guys were still drinking milk." In front of it. It was really ridiculous. The middle-aged man in black's face sank a little, and the sinister look in his eyes became stronger. "How dare you talk back when you're about to die?" He stepped forward, and his right hand clenched into a dragon's claw. There were wisps of faint light intertwining out, carrying a kind of corrosive poison. It was a very terrifying poison that directly corroded the surrounding void, and a cold aura overflowed. Bai Ziqi stared at this person with a cold expression. His Thunder God King body swayed slightly, as if a wisp of light had flashed past his body. Almost at the same time, the middle-aged man in black also shook slightly. The sinister expression on his face suddenly froze, and he looked at Bai Ziqi. "You, puff!" The blood light exploded, and the middle-aged man in black directly shattered. Even his soul dissipated in it. His body and soul were destroyed. In an instant, the expressions of the dozen or so cultivators changed. "What's going on? What happened?" These people were shocked. Just now, they did not see anything, but the black-clothed middle-aged man exploded. Even his soul could not escape. This was a little terrifying. One had to know that the black-clothed middle-aged man was at the 5th firmament of the Great Tao. Only Bai Chiu, Wishing Crocodile, and Yang Qi knew what had happened. They knew that the middle-aged man had been killed by Bai Ziqi. "Brat Bai, well done!" Wishing Crocodile bared its teeth. "Exactly," Bai Chiu agreed. Her brother had once obtained a supreme secret technique in some ancient ruins, and it was called the Divine Nine Transformations. It was incomparably powerful, and its attack speed was extremely fast, surpassing the limits of the human body. Ordinary people would not be able to see the attack trajectory of this divine technique clearly. Immediately, the expressions of the cultivators changed again. From what Wishing Crocodile and Bai Chiu had said, it seemed that the middle-aged man in black at the 5th firmament of the Great Tao had been killed by Bai Ziqi. He did it? How is that possible? He was just standing there. He did not move at all. How could he have the chance to kill someone? These cultivators did not believe it. In the next moment, someone among the cultivators suddenly trembled. Just now, his body seemed to have swayed. As soon as this voice was heard, the cultivators all trembled. They seriously recalled the scene before the black-clothed middle-aged man exploded. Swayed, it seems to have been, could it be that? These cultivators suddenly felt a chill down their spines. At this moment, these people recalled that in the instant before the black-clothed middle-aged man exploded, Baiziki's body did seem to have swayed. Previously, they only thought that it was a flash of light from Baiziki's body, so they did not pay much attention to it. But now, they suddenly felt that their internal organs were a little cold. At that time, it was not a flash of light from Baiziki's body, but Baiziki's physical body shaking when he launched an attack. After killing the black-clothed middle-aged man with extreme speed, he returned to his original position? Was the black-clothed middle-aged man of the fifth heaven of the great Tao really killed by Baiziki? Thinking of this, these cultivators all trembled. The way they looked at Baiziki changed completely. Even the experts of the seventh heaven of the great Tao were no exception. At this time, they already believed that the black-clothed middle-aged man was killed by Baiziki. They could not help but feel a chill down their spines. They were not shocked by the fact that Baiziki killed the black-clothed middle-aged man of the fifth heaven of the great Tao, but by the fact that none of them saw the process of Baiziki killing the black-clothed middle-aged man. A powerful cultivator of the fifth heaven of the great Tao was killed in front of everyone's eyes. However, they did not even see the killer's movement or attack trajectory. They thought that the killer was standing in the same place without moving. How terrifying was this? One had to know that there were existences in the seventh heavenly layer of the great Tao among the dozen of them. Even a ninth heavenly layer of the great Tao cultivator wouldn't be able to kill them without making a sound. These people stared at Baiziki. Was this person as terrifying as the man who killed in Lanjing and several young kings of the central region in front of the stone wall? Then, their eyes swept over Baiziki, Wishing Crocodile, and Yang Qi. They could not help but feel a chill in their hearts. Could it be that these two people and one demon were not inferior to Baiziki and were just as powerful? Thinking of this, a sudden chill struck the heads of this group of people. Some of them could not help but tremble violently. Like I said, if you want to observe the stone wall from a close distance, you can. However, wait a moment! Baiziki glanced at the dozen of people and spoke at this moment. His voice was very calm, but at this moment, in the ears of the dozen or so cultivators, it was like the sonorous sound of a divine sword. Immediately, the cultivators who had walked to this place did not dare to casually approach the stone wall. The method that Baiziki used to kill the black-clothed middle-aged man was too terrifying. They couldn't even see the trajectory of the attack. If Baiziki used the same method to deal with them, who among the dozen of them would be able to escape misfortune? From a certain perspective, it was a destructive attack that could not be seen. At least, with their strength, they could not see it. Baichio looked at these people and snorted softly. Just now, many of these people had the intention to kill them. She glanced at these people and then shifted her gaze to Lin Tian. At this moment, Lin Tianwei closed his eyes and stood in front of the stone wall like a 10,000-year-old pine tree. He did not move at all, and there was not a trace of divine light on his body. It was as if he had turned into an ordinary person. But even so, when he stood there, he still gave off an enormous pressure. He was like a slumbering ancient ferocious beast. These were two different temperaments, but at this moment, they both appeared on the same person at the same time. Contradictory, but harmonious. He should be doing the final refinement of the great art. Just a little bit more, and he should be able to achieve the initial mastery, Wishing Crocodile said. Baichio clasped her hands and looked seriously at Lin Tian. She whispered softly, encouraging Lin Tian in her heart. Baiziki and Yang Qi looked at Lin Tian, and at the same time, looked around vigilantly to prevent any outsiders from approaching. Lin Tian stood quietly in front of the stone wall like an old stone. It was as if his soul had left his body. He stood there, and the aura he exuded was sometimes as calm as a mirror, and sometimes as strong as a galaxy. In the blink of an eye, another 6 hours passed. Divine light gradually intertwined around Lin Tian's body, and the light of the great path surrounded him. "It will be done soon!" Wishing Crocodile's eyes flashed with a ray of light. Bai Ziki and the other two nodded. Naturally, they could feel it, and at the same time, they became more vigilant of their surroundings. At this moment, strands of golden divine light spread out from Lin Tian's body. Strands of the light of the great path appeared and surrounded him. Faintly, the cries of phoenixes and the roars of dragons resounded from his body, causing the space around him to distort slightly. Then, all kinds of runes jumped out in the next moment, like elven warriors floating around him. This kind of aura was a bit shocking, and it made the dozens of cultivators on the opposite side tremble. Their eyes were full of shock. It was also at this time that a ray of immortal light flashed by not far away, and two figures stepped into this place. The person in the lead had black hair that reached his shoulders, and his face was as sharp as a knife. His entire body was surrounded by a faint chaotic light, as if he was the reincarnation of the heavenly god of chaos. "Anlan Jing!" Suddenly, everyone's expression changed. Anlan Jing walked over, his expression indifferent. His eyes were as deep as two fountains of chaos, and it was as if one's soul was about to be sucked into them. Another man followed behind him. He was dressed in black armor, and his aura was also very powerful and very shocking. "This is his real body. Anlan Jing's real body. He's already out of seclusion. Behind him is the second general of the 9 great generals, Li Yuanhua. He seems to have reached the 9th heaven of the great path." The dozens of cultivators who entered this place first all trembled. When they saw Anlan Jing walk in, their faces revealed expressions of fear and reverence. Many people couldn't help but take a few steps back, and there were even some people who felt a chill run down their backs. This was really because the Enlin realm was too terrifying. Not only did he have the chaotic king physique, his aptitude and cultivation were also peerless in the world. Several years ago, he had killed the Wuzhen experts of the older generation, and his fame spread far and wide. How could ordinary people not be afraid? At this time, Bai Ziki and the others were also moved. Their gazes fell on Anlan Jing, who was walking over, and their expressions changed. "Very scary!" Yang Qi rarely spoke, his expression heavy. Looking at the Anlin realm, he felt a mountain-like pressure. Even the old monster Wishing Crocodile became serious. "This is a little troublesome. This chaotic bastard really isn't simple. Ordinary Wuzhen cultivators shouldn't be able to stop him." Anlan Jing was surrounded by divine light, like a god from heaven descending into the world. His gaze swept over Bai Ziki and the others, and then over the stone wall. Finally, it fell on Lin Tian, who was standing quietly in front of the stone wall. Immediately, the light of primal chaos surged in his indifferent eyes. Behind him, Li Yuanhua's eyes were cold. At this time, he stepped forward, and a tyrannical killing intent enveloped Bai Ziki and the others. He pulled out a divine weapon and pressed it down. "You bastards deserve to die 10,000 times over." The man took a step forward, but his killing intent was focused on Bai Chiu, Bai Ziki, Yang Qi, and the 5 phases crocodile, leaving Lin Tian out in the open. After all, this man knew that Lin Tian's master, Anlan Jing, was going to personally kill him. Boom! Chapter 885. Lin Tian woke up like a proud true dragon. All kinds of divine light and Tao patterns intertwined around him, making him seem unapproachable. His eyes were bright and carried a kind of sharpness, like an unsheathed immortal sword, peerless and terrifying. On the opposite side, the dozens of cultivators trembled. At this moment, they looked at Lin Tian and couldn't help but tremble, and a chill ran down their spines. At this moment, these people felt an extremely terrifying aura from Lin Tian, as if it could shatter the sky. Bai Ziki, Wishing Crocodile, and the other 2 looked at Lin Tian. At this moment, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Lin Tian had finally woken up. Good. Have you understood, kid?" Wishing Crocodile laughed. "Not bad." Lin Tian smiled. Bai Qiu immediately showed a look of joy. That's great! Bai Ziki and Yang Qi looked at Lin Tian. Hearing Lin Tian's 2 words, they couldn't help but nod. Lin Tian practiced his fist technique in front of the stone wall for half a month, and finally, he understood something. And Lan Jing looked at Lin Tian. Chaotic light surged in his eyes, and the divine light on the surface of his body became stronger. His eyes were deep and cold. Li Yuanhua felt the terrifying aura on Lin Tian's body at this moment, and his expression changed slightly. However, in the next moment, his eyes became cold again. Master and Lan is here. No matter what kind of achievements you have, you will all die here today. He wielded a powerful divine weapon and continued to attack Bai Ziki and the others as well as the 5 elements crocodile. He didn't attack Lin Tian. Lin Tian Sha killed Zhan Yuji and destroyed one of Enlanjing's consciousness clones, leaving it for Enlanjing to kill personally. Boom! The divine weapon above his head vibrated, and for a moment, the destructive power directly enveloped Bai Ziki, the 3 of them, and the wishing crocodile. Lin Tian tilted his head and looked at this person. His eyes were indifferent as he took a step forward. His steps were very gentle, but when his foot landed, this immortal residence suddenly produced a loud boom. A majestic force spread out from his point of origin, directly scattering the divine light around Li Yuanhua's body and sending him flying dozens of feet away. This Li Yuanhua has already reached the 9th heaven of the Great Tao, but he only took a single step and the dozen or so cultivators who arrived first all turned pale with fright. Li Yuanhua stood up in the distance, spitting out blood. His body was covered in cracks, and the divine weapon he took out was shaking non-stop. You! He stared at Lin Tian with a hint of shock in his eyes. Lin Tian's expression was emotionless as he stepped forward again. Rays of heavenly light materialized and pressed down on his opponent. If you want to touch my friend, you'll have to die first. His voice was cold. A majestic force intertwined, and the heavenly light was like a source of destruction, pressing down on Li Yuanhua mightily. This kind of force was somewhat terrifying. It was as if the Milky Way in the starry sky was pressing down, unstoppable and unstoppable. Enlanjing's eyes were cold. The chaotic light surged and turned into divine swords, blocking Lin Tian's divine light. Lin Tian's expression didn't change, and his eyes were still cold. He kicked out a fist-sized rock beside his foot, causing the rock to be wrapped in a circle of light. It instantly closed in on Li Yuanhua. Li Yuanhua revealed a look of shock and fear. This fist-sized rock flew over at this moment, as if a flawless saint weapon was pressing down. Its speed was extremely fast, and even if Enlanjing wanted to stop it, it would be a bit too late. Poof! Blood exploded, and Li Yuanhua's head was directly smashed into pieces. Even his divine soul was smashed into pieces. Instantly, the expressions of all the cultivators here changed again. Dead! Dead! Li Yuanhua of the 9th heaven of the Great Tao was actually killed so easily? He actually killed the subordinate of the chaotic body right in front of him. These cultivators' hearts trembled. Bai Ziki's trio and Wishing Crocodile were also surprised. They were all shocked by Lin Tian's tyrannical means. He actually killed Li Yuanhua of the 9th heaven of the Great Tao so easily. Wait! Wishing Crocodile looked at Lin Tian and was suddenly shocked again. This abnormal kid actually entered the 6th heaven of the Great Tao! Bai Ziki's trio was shocked when they heard this. They immediately used their divine senses to scan carefully, and then they were shocked again. Lin Tian's cultivation was actually at the 6th minor step of the Great Tao. He comprehended a supreme precious technique, and even rose 2 minor realms in succession? Bai Qiu's eyes widened, shocked by Lin Tian's harvest in this place. It was also at this moment that 2 oppressive auras appeared at the same time, causing this celestial venerate cave abode to shake violently involuntarily. And Lanjing's gaze fell on Lin Tian. Chaotic light intertwined all over her body, like the birth of an emperor, and her killing intent was not concealed at all. Lin Tian was as still as a mountain. His golden divine light was vast and mighty, and his eyes were cold. It was as if the sun god had reappeared, and his aura was unparalleled. Chi! 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 The two faced each other, and their auras collided. For a moment, hurricanes filled the sky, and electric arcs intertwined. The cultivators who first appeared here were all shocked, and they all looked at Enlonjing and Lin Tian in shock. These two people, just the collision of their auras, were so terrifying that it made them feel a chill down their spines. What surprised them even more was that Lin Tian could actually resist Enlonjing completely by relying on his aura, and he was not at a disadvantage at all. He can block the chaotic body? These people's hearts palpitated. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He was more than 3 feet away from Enlonjing, and their auras kept colliding, causing the void in this place to creak. Cracks even appeared on the ground, and the scene was somewhat terrifying. In the next moment, Enlonjing moved. She spread out her large hand, and the chaotic light pressed down on Lin Tian, enveloping him. Lin Tian killed Zhang Yuji, killed a few of his generals, and destroyed one of his consciousness incarnations. He had already said that he would kill Lin Tian. Boom! The chaotic light fluctuated, and it was as if a sea of destruction was descending. Lin Tian's expression was cold. He did not dodge, and directly waved his right hand, and met the attack with a golden iron fist. With a boom, the two collided, and directly shattered the space beside them. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. After he waved his right fist, his left hand formed a seal with one hand. Using the divine technique, he directly supported a sea of 3-leaf clovers, and mightily suppressed Enlonjing. Boom! The sea of 3-leaf clovers shook. As Lin Tian's cultivation entered the 6th heaven of the Great Path, he became even more terrifying now. A chaotic sword rushed out from behind Enlonjing. It was condensed from divine power, and with a light slash, it crushed everything. Lin Tian's expression did not change at all. He withdrew his right fist, and the divine technique was used again. The 9 springs sacred sword, the blood-colored crack, the desolate mountain, the divine weapon bell, and all kinds of divine elephants appeared together, and flew directly toward Enlonjing. Crack! As these divine elephants pressed down, the space in front of them was crushed again, and a destructive force enveloped Enlonjing. Many cultivators trembled slightly. This kind of method was really a little scary, and it made them feel frightened. Enlonjing's eyes were cold, and like 2 killing swords, the chaotic sword behind her rushed up again and slashed down, directly shattering all the divine elephants. She took a step forward, reached out with her right hand, and pointed a forefinger at Lin Tian. Her forefinger almost completely turned into radiance, as if it was condensed from light, and also like a divine sword unsheathed, there was a terrifying aura that could penetrate all appeared. Celestial Finger! It is said to be a secret divine technique of the Enlon clan. With a finger, it can penetrate all things. It is said that Enlonjing once used this divine technique to crush a demon god Wuzhen in this heaven region with a finger. Many cultivators' hearts palpitated. The celestial finger was very powerful, and when it was used by Enlonjing, it was even more terrifying. Under the pressure of her finger, the killing power contained within was terrifying to the extreme. It was like a flawless divine sword, and it really seemed like it could penetrate all things. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He directly supported the Bai clan's great immortal king arcane technique, and activated the Sun Heart Sutra, facing forward. Boom! The two collided, and the light of destruction surged, interweaving in all directions. Lin Tian formed a sword with his bare hands, and stepped up into the sky full of destructive light, directly slashing down a sharp sword intent. With a light-tearing sound, the void was directly cut open, and the sharp sword intent instantly pressed in front of Enlonjing. Enlonjing raised her hand, and the celestial finger trembled, directly shattering this sword light. At the same time, it pressed down on Lin Tian again. Lin Tian was fearless. His eyes were full of coldness, and he directly faced the attack. He used the Heaven's Evolution divine technique to create divine images, primitive mountains, 3-leaf clover sea, blood-colored cracks, 9 springs sacred sword, and others appeared one after another, becoming stronger than before, and their killing power was astonishing. Boom! The two of them clashed, techniques colliding, and divine light instantly filled the sky. This divine light was only strands interweaving, and it was only the aftershocks of the two of them clashing, but it was equally terrifying, crushing a lot of space, and forcing many cultivators to retreat again and again. This chaotic bastard is already at the 9th tier of the Great Tao, and his battle prowess is really frightening. Wishing Crocodile stared at Enlanging, and his expression was slightly solemn. Although Lin Tian is very abnormal, it will be very difficult to deal with him. I believe that Lin Tianyi will definitely win. Baiqiu clenched his fists. Boom! 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 In front, Lin Tian and Enlanging clashed, the Heaven's Evolution divine technique against the celestial finger, endless light of techniques, and endless killing light. At this time, the two of them had not used their full strength, but even so, the impact of their collision was still huge, causing the cave to shake more and more violently, and the cracks on the ground quickly spread in all directions. Suddenly, Enlanging's expression changed slightly, and the chaotic light outside her body suddenly became several times stronger, and even the chaos origin lit up slightly. She suddenly tilted her head to look at the stone wall not far away. There, a place on the stone wall also lit up, and all kinds of runes and Tao marks intertwined, flowing with chaotic immortal light, resonating with Enlanging's chaos origin. This is somewhat similar to the situation of the Bai family's daughter. Wishing Crocodile's expression immediately changed. Half of the Tao marks on that stone wall were left by the primal chaos celestial. He has the primal chaos physique, and it seems that he's drawing something from the stone wall. It's very likely that it's the primal chaos celestial's supreme scripture. Yang Qi's expression also changed. It wasn't just them, but the other dozen or so great Tao cultivators also trembled, and all of them revealed looks of shock. These people didn't know exactly what was on the stone wall, but at this time, they could guess that there was something on the stone wall that was connecting with Enlanging. Once Enlanging obtained it, Enlanging's strength would definitely increase. Enlanging looked at the stone wall, and her chaos origin lit up. At this time, she temporarily abandoned Lin Tian and stepped toward the stone wall. At this time, a Tao mark on the stone wall flowed with chaotic light, resonating with her chaos origin. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of a sword rang out, surging in all directions. Not far away, Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and a blood-red divine sword appeared in his hand. He directly used all his strength to activate the 3 styles of Ling Tian, and slashed out a Ling Tian sword aura that could destroy all things. This sword aura was domineering and peerless, and its killing power was unparalleled. However, it didn't force Enlanging, but directly slashed at the stone wall. Chapter 886. The towering heaven sword aura flashed and shattered with extreme speed. It carried a peerlessly domineering sword power as it passed by Enlanging and landed on the stone wall in front of her. Suddenly, there was a loud bang. The stone wall was directly cut into pieces, and all the Tao marks dimmed and extinguished. He broke the stone wall. How can this be? The dozen or so cultivators who first appeared here were anxious, and their faces turned ugly. There were countless marks of the Tao on that stone wall, yet now, it had actually been slashed into pieces by Lin Tian, and everything had vanished. Yang Qi's trio and Wishing Crocodile were also shocked, but in the next moment, their eyes flashed with a ray of light. Enlanging resonated with the stone wall. If this continued, she would definitely draw out something extraordinary. It would most likely be the supreme ancient scripture of the primordial chaos celestial, whose value was unparalleled. But now that Lin Tian had destroyed the stone wall, Enlanging would not be able to get anything. Good boy, you did a good job! Wishing Crocodile could not help but laugh. Several months ago, they dug out this celestial venerate's cavern and found this place. Whatever they could comprehend from the stone walls, they had already comprehended and obtained great benefits. Now, the stone walls were useless to them. If they were destroyed, then so be it. At the same time, Anlanjing's hope of getting the primordial chaos celestial scripture was destroyed. It was a wonderful thing. Anlanjing stopped, and the light emitted by her life essence dimmed and then gradually extinguished. He looked at the shattered stone wall, and was stunned. Then, a terrifying murderous intent burst out. "You deserve to die!" He suddenly turned his head to look at Lin Tian. His eyes became incomparably terrifying, like two sacred swords. The chaotic light in them surged violently as if it was going to destroy the world. Boom! With him as the center, a beam of chaotic light rushed up and pierced through the mountain where the cave was located. Then, the mountain collapsed with a loud bang. For a moment, smoke and dust billowed in all directions. The wind swept in all directions, causing the plants near the mountain to sway wildly. The dozen or so cultivators who came here at the beginning all trembled in fear as they looked at Anlanjing in the dust. Anlanjing's aura had completely shattered such a huge mountain. What kind of terrifying power was that? Bai Ziqi's trio and the wishing crocodile dodged the boulders that fell from the mountain. At this time, they were all moved. "Terrifying," Yang Qi said. "As expected of the king of chaos body." Wishing Crocodile's expression was grave. Bai Qiu looked at Lin Tian worriedly, but he quickly clenched his fists. Although she could clearly feel how terrifying Anlanjing was, she still believed in Lin Tian. She believed that Lin Tian would not lose to her. Roiling dust and dirt surged ahead while Lin Tian resided at the center. Golden divine light interweaved on the surface of his body, and it was even to the extent that strands of blood-red arcs of lightning flickered and crackled as they blasted all the rocks and gravel in the surroundings into pieces. "When your capable generals were killed, and when Zhang Yuji was killed, you were not as angry as you are now. It seems that you don't care about the lives of your capable generals. That Zhang Yuji is not as important to you as the rumors say. At least, it can't compare to the spell on the stone wall." He looked at Anlanjing in front of him and said with a hint of sarcasm, "To you, they can't even compare to a single spell." Anlanjing's body was surrounded by the light of primal chaos. Her eyes were sharp and filled with killing intent, causing the void around her to rumble. When he first came to this heaven domain, it was because he found many clues. He knew that the immortal estate world of this heaven domain contained primal chaos Empyrean's primal origin ancient scripture. As long as he found this ancient scripture, his primal chaos physique would be able to become even stronger, and he would be able to fully excavate his potential. In the future, he would be able to walk very far on the path of cultivation. Just now, he had sensed the primal chaos celestial's primal chaos ancient scripture from the stone wall. It was extremely compatible with his primal chaos essence and resonated with him. However, before he could gain enlightenment from the stone wall, Lin Tian had attacked and destroyed the entire stone wall, causing him to miss the opportunity to obtain the ancient scripture. "You deserve to die." He still only said these 3 words. The next moment he moved like a god of death. The light of primal chaos that filled the sky pressed down on Lin Tian. The celestial finger became 10 times more terrifying, as if it wanted to pierce through and destroy the entire immortal mansion world. Lin Tianling snorted and did not dodge. He flipped the blood-colored sword in his hand and used the Heaven Domination Sword scripture to meet the attack. Clang! The golden Heaven Domination Sword radiance was terrifyingly powerful and instantly shattered a large area of space. The two collided. The celestial finger radiance was vast and mighty, and the Heaven Domination Sword radiance was intertwined. Dense cracks appeared in space and quickly spread in all directions like a spider web. "In the last battle, you lost a consciousness clone. This time, I wonder if you will lose your life." Lin Tianling smiled. He held the blood-colored sword in his right hand and waved the Heaven Domination Sword radiance. His left hand used the Bai family's supreme god palm and slapped toward Anlanjing's head. Suddenly, the void distorted and trembled because of the pressure of the supreme god palm. Anlanjing's eyes were as sharp as a sword. She shattered Lin Tian's supreme god palm. The celestial finger radiance shook again and shot out destructive finger radiance. It collided with Lin Tian's Heaven Domination Sword radiance, and for a moment, it stirred up a destructive mist that filled the sky. Lin Tian shook the blood-colored sword in his hand, causing the Heaven Domination Sword Radiance to become even stronger. It was a terrifying sword radiance. Boom! The space rumbled as the two divine auras collided, causing more cracks to appear in the void. In the nearby mountains, many birds and beasts were frightened and fled. At the same time, many other cultivators who had entered this immortal mansion world had rushed here because of the commotion that occurred when Lin Tian was comprehending the technique in the immortal mansion world at the beginning. However, when these people arrived and saw the battle between Lin Tian and Enlonjing, they were all shocked. Enlonjing with the chaos physique, and the person in the recent rumors, that person is actually fighting Enlonjing with the chaos physique? And he's not at a disadvantage? That person is actually so powerful? He can actually fight the chaos physique head-on. Everyone was shocked. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He didn't care about these cultivators who had rushed here. Only the divine sword in his hand hummed loudly. Suddenly, the Heaven Domination Sword Radiance became even more terrifying, as if it could cut through everything. Chi! 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 Enlonjing's Heaven Domination Sword Radiance was continuously cut into pieces. It was like a flame meeting a flood, unable to get close to Lin Tian. Lin Tian shook the divine sword in his hand again. Even more Heaven Domination Sword Radiance pressed down like a rain of swords. Clang! His eyes were cold. With a wave of his right hand, he directly slashed out the Heaven Domination Sword. The ultimate sword radiance instantly pressed down on Enlonjing, crushing all of Enlonjing's Heaven Domination Sword Radiance in an instant. Then, it pressed down on Enlonjing's glabella. Enlonjing's entire body was covered in chaotic light. Dozens of chaos-killing swords rushed up and crushed Lin Tian's sword radiance. However, right at this moment, a swoosh sound could be heard as Lin Tian arrived in front of Enlonjing after Lin Tian's sword strike. His left fist punched out towards Enlonjing. Boom! The sky trembled and collapsed. The golden fist's radiance lit up the surrounding space. Enlonjing raised her fist to meet it. Chaotic light intertwined at the tip of her fist. The power was extremely terrifying. Bam! The two fists collided, creating an earth-shattering boom. The surrounding space instantly collapsed inch by inch. In the next moment, with a loud bang, Enlonjing flew backward. Drops of blood floated in the air. Instantly, all the cultivators in this place were shocked again. That person, suppressed the chaotic body? It was a pure physical collision. Enlonjing was actually beaten to the point of bleeding. How is this possible? Many cultivators were shocked. Enlonjing was at the 9th heaven of the Great Path. Furthermore, she had the chaotic king physique. Her body was terrifyingly strong. She could crush powerful ancient beasts with a raise of her hand. But now, her body was actually injured by a cultivator at the 6th heaven of the Great Path. His physical body is stronger than the chaotic body? Someone looked at Lin Tian with an expression of disbelief. It was as if he had seen a ghost. Not far away, Bai Ziki and the others looked as usual. They were very clear about how strong Lin Tian's physical body was. Therefore, when they saw Lin Tian injuring Enlonjing in a pure physical collision, they weren't surprised at all. Originally, this kid's physical body is very abnormal. Even the barbarian king physique in the 4th heaven is slightly inferior to him. When he stepped into the Great Path realm, he even transcended 2 heavenly tribulations in a row, making his physical body even more tyrannical. Now, in terms of physical strength, who in the same generation can compete with him? Wishing Crocodile sneered. Of course, its voice was very low. Only Bai Ziki and the other two could hear it. Clang! After sending Enlonjing flying with a punch, Lin Tian directly waved the divine sword in his hand, pressing down on Enlonjing with a dense sword light. At the same time, he also moved. Every step he took left an afterimage as he waved his golden fist. Enlonjing was very strong, very strong. If it was before he stepped into the heavenly venerable cave, he believed that he would be under great pressure to fight her. But now, after advancing 2 small realms in a row in the heavenly venerable cave and reaching the 6th heavenly layer, his combat strength had greatly improved. Facing Enlanging now, he didn't feel the slightest pressure. Boom! When his fist fell, the entire void trembled and shattered. It couldn't withstand such a powerful punch at all. Does he have the barbarian king physique? Or is he the reincarnation of the legendary true dragon? How can his physical body be so terrifying? Many cultivators were shocked. Enlanging stabilized her body in the distance. Her eyes became even sharper and more terrifying, and her black hair fluttered in the wind. With a hum, an inch-long pagoda charged out from within his body. As soon as it appeared, it rapidly enlarged. In an instant, it had become over 3 m tall, and it directly emanated a terrifying divine might that could shatter the heavens and split the earth. It caused the clouds in the sky to shatter quite a bit. This is a peak-level high-grade divine weapon! Chapter 887. The pagoda expanded to the size of 3 meters. Powerful divine light interweaved around it, exuding a destructive might that seemed capable of suppressing heaven and earth. Lin Tian's expression changed. He retracted his fist and stepped on the duality puppet, retreating decisively. This bastard, he actually controls a peak-level high-grade divine weapon! In the distance, Wishing Crocodile cursed. The expressions of Bai Ziki and the other 2 changed slightly. Peak-grade high-grade divine weapons were far superior to low-grade divine weapons. They were much stronger than low-grade divine weapons and could increase the battle prowess of the wielder by several folds. It was hard to face them head-on. Boom! The pagoda once again emitted a dazzling light, covering all directions, shattering even more layers of clouds in the sky. Enlanging's eyes were sharp and cold. She stepped forward, and the pagoda moved with her. It was like a legendary divine general from the immortal world. The moment it moved, everything would collapse as it rushed towards Lin Tian. Light flashed in Lin Tian's eyes as he unleashed the Heaven's Divination divine technique. The 9 Springs Saint sword appeared in his hand as he swung the Ling Tian sword scripture with the low-grade blood-colored divine sword, unleashing a blinding killing sword. Clang! The immortal sword broke through the void, exuding an awe-inspiring might, causing many cultivators in this place to tremble. They were all shocked by the might of the divine might. However, in the next moment, these cultivators' expressions changed again. Enlanging's pace didn't change. The pagoda moved, directly shattering the terrifying sword light, turning it into specks of starlight that drifted in the air. Enlanging pushed the pagoda forward. Chaotic light surged around her, as if a divine god had descended, using the pagoda to suppress Lin Tian. With a cracking sound, wherever the pagoda passed, everything was destroyed. Lin Tian used all his strength to activate the blood-colored divine sword and the divining divine technique, but it was useless. The high-grade divine weapon was too powerful. Under the control of Enlanging, all his means were instantly destroyed, and he was forced back several meters. Blood flowed out from his mouth. Boom! Divine might fluctuated, shaking the heavens. Enlanging stepped forward like a divine god. Her eyes were sharp and terrifying, causing the pagoda to become even stronger. The shocking aura intertwined as if it wanted to destroy the entire 5th heaven. Lin Tian's eyes intertwined with cold light, and the black hair on his forehead fluttered. At this moment, the void around him was completely sealed as if he was suppressed in a dark purgatory. So strong! Such a divine weapon, such power, who in the same generation can block it? This is Enlanging! Moreover, this is far from his most powerful technique. It is rumored that he has also cultivated several heaven-shocking divine techniques. Many cultivators palpitated. Ling Tian's is somewhat of a pity because I'm afraid he's going to be finished, of them. Of them is of the primal chaos of heavens, is, of Lin. Of. Boom! In the sky, Enlanging went up with the pagoda. Her divine might was even fiercer and more terrifying. With the pagoda, she completely sealed the space around Lin Tian. The destructive aura gathered in a fixed range, pressing down on Lin Tian like the Milky Way of the ninth heaven. With a hiss, the void was annihilated, and a terrifying space turbulence poured out as if the world was about to be destroyed. In the distance, Baiziki's group and Wishing Crocodile all showed dignified expressions, looking at Lin Tian with slight worry. This power is indeed terrifying, but Grandpa Crocodile believes that abnormal kid can resist it. Wishing Crocodile said. I believe it too. Baichio clenched his fists, his eyes full of determination. Boom! On the battlefield, the light of the pagoda intertwined, becoming even more terrifying. The space around Lin Tian was completely crushed. For a time, the void cracks were like a door of destruction, trying to swallow Lin Tian. This scene was a little scary. Even an ordinary ninth heaven of the Great Path expert would explode in an instant, unable to withstand it. However, there was no fear in Lin Tian's eyes. Moreover, he directly kept the blood-colored divine sword into his body. What did he do? He actually kept the divine weapon at this time? Could it be that he knows he can't defeat her, so he didn't fight back? Many people were moved and puzzled. However, in the next moment, with a boom, a terrifying aura spread out and rushed out from Lin Tian's body. At this moment, the aura on Lin Tian's body changed. His indifferent eyes carried a domineering aura. His whole person showed a supreme celestial aura, and divine light shot into the sky. Facing Enlongjing's upper-grade divine weapon pagoda, he moved again. His movement was simple. He only met it with a punch. Roar! As he punched out, the sound of a phoenix rushed out in an instant. A celestial phoenix appeared, suppressing all directions. With a cracking sound, the space that was sealed by the pagoda collapsed like an immortal cage. Dong! Lin Tian went against the sky. Heaven and earth roared because of his punch, and he landed directly on Enlongjing's pagoda. With a bang, the pagoda flew out, and the divine light on the surface of the pagoda was chaotic. Oh my God! What did I just see? He sent a pinnacle divine weapon flying with a punch? Is he still human? Even a brute king body of the same level is far from this standard, right? All around, the crowd of cultivators was shocked. A pinnacle upper-grade divine weapon in the hands of a ninth heaven of the Great Path chaotic body, but now it was sent flying by a sixth heaven of the Great Path cultivator with a single punch. At this moment, only Baiziki and the others' eyes flashed. It's the ancient technique that the brat comprehended on the stone wall, Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tiani will definitely win, Baichio said firmly. In front, Lin Tian's eyes were cold. At this moment, it was as if an ancient celestial lord had come back to life. His movements were very simple. He just took a step and then punched. Roar! The sound of a dragon's roar was heard. After the celestial phoenix, a true dragon appeared and coiled around his arm. The dragon's might was vast and mighty, like a supreme dragon emperor. With a bang, Enlongjing's pagoda flew out again, and the divine light on the surface of the pagoda became even more chaotic. Enlongjing looked shocked for the first time. With a low shout, the chaotic light on her body surged as she activated the divine weapon pagoda with all her might. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, without joy, sorrow, or fear. With an indomitable aura, he punched again. Dong! As he punched, heaven and earth shook, the sky collapsed, and everything was destroyed. Enlongjing's pagoda was hit by the punch and flew out again with a bang. This time, with a crisp sound, a few clear cracks appeared on the pagoda, landing in the eyes of all the cultivators present. Instantly, the expressions of all the cultivators present changed. The pagoda is cracked? He cracked a peak-level superior-grade divine weapon? How is this possible? All the cultivators were shocked. A peak-level superior-grade divine weapon was extremely powerful and indestructible, but now, it was cracked by someone. Even Baiziki and the others, who were not far away, were astonished. Even though they knew that the fist art that Lin Tian comprehended from the stone wall was extremely terrifying, they didn't expect it to be this terrifying. It actually caused a crack to appear on a high-grade divine artifact. Boom! In front, the divine light was vast and mighty, and the power of the punch appeared again. Lin Tian swung his fist. A celestial phoenix and a real dragon appeared at the same time, intertwining at the tip of his fist. It was as if he wanted to crush heaven and earth. Half a month ago, he comprehended a special ancient technique on the stone wall of the primordial immortal's abode. It used his fist as the shape, his will as the foundation, and Tao as the foundation. It was called the Chaotic Emperor's Fist. It was a supreme fist technique created by the primordial immortal. This fist technique completely abandoned one's defense. Its attack power was extremely terrifying. When cultivated to the extreme, it was said that one punch could destroy everything. Of course, because this fist technique was so terrifying, it had very strict requirements for the cultivator. It required the cultivator to have at least the physical strength of a cultivator of the enlightened realm to be able to cultivate it. Also, the cultivator had to have a strong will of the great path that was unafraid of anything. Otherwise, if one forced himself to cultivate this fist technique, he would be a burden to himself and die from the backlash. These two requirements were obviously nothing to Lin Tian. Since he started cultivating, he had gone through 4 thunder tribulations. His physical body had long been unimaginably strong, far surpassing ordinary enlightened realm cultivators. At the same time, he had lived 2 lives, so his will was even more indestructible. Few people could compare to him. It could be said that this chaotic emperor's fist was simply tailor-made for him. This kind of close-range attack saint technique, this kind of fighting style, was what he liked the most. Boom! He stepped forward, his black hair dancing in the wind. He was like an immortal emperor descending into the world. With one punch, all Tao trembled. With a bang, Anlanjing's divine weapon pagoda was hit again. The pagoda shook uncontrollably, and a crisp sound was heard again. There was no other emotion on his face. He was cold and indifferent. With a supreme celestial aura, he swung his divine fist again. Dong! 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 He swung 8 punches in a row. Each punch had the power to shake the world. Each punch landed steadily on Anlanjing's upper-grade divine weapon pagoda, causing the pagoda to shake even more violently. The divine light trembled chaotically, and the cracks became denser. Then, when his 9th punch landed, the immortal phoenix and true dragon roared in unison and rushed forward together with his fist force. Crack! With an ear-piercing crisp sound, Anlanjing's pagoda was blasted into pieces and exploded in the sky. It's broken? Everyone's expression changed again. A peak-grade upper-grade divine weapon was actually destroyed by a punch. What a pity, what a pity! A precious weapon of this level is shockingly valuable. It would be great if we could get it. Wishing Crocodile was both surprised and pained. Dong! The sky shook again. Lin Tian stepped forward and swung his 10th punch. This fist met Anlan's attack head-on. I'll break you! His voice was cold and merciless. With a loud rumble, this time, not only did the immortal phoenix and true dragon appear beside him, but there were also all kinds of strange phenomena in the sky. He was like the legendary lord of the celestial world descending to the mortal world. His aura could suppress the sky, and his power could suppress the earth. Anlanjing's expression changed. She quickly propped up the chaotic divine light that filled the sky, and used more than 10 secret techniques in a row. With a boom, with her as the center, tens of thousands of spatial divine light beams shot out in all directions. Some of the older cultivators in the 9th heaven of the Great Path felt their hearts palpitate. They only felt that any one of those divine light beams could crush them. However, all of this was futile. Lin Tian stepped forward. Under the pressure of his fist, everything was obliterated in an instant. Then, the power of his fist did not dissipate, and its momentum did not decrease. It landed on Anlanjing. Anlanjing retreated and propped up the chaotic light to protect her body. Crack! With a crisp sound, the chaotic light that filled the sky was directly destroyed. Lin Tian's fist landed steadily on Anlanjing's chest. Chapter 888. Two clouds of bloody mist interweaved in the air, crushed flesh and bones scattering everywhere, causing all of the nearby cultivators to tremble. They both blasted each other to pieces. Someone shivered, heart palpitating as he stared forward. Boom! Boom! In the heavens, two waves of divine might surged. Lin Tian's shattered body squirmed about, strands of blood-colored flames jumping about, reforming his physical body in the blink of an eye. On the other side, within Enlongjing's shattered body, the primordial divine symbol flickered with strange light, condensing a physical body at almost the same time. The two of them stared at each other, not saying anything. Their gazes were both cold, colliding once again like two streaks of lightning. In that instant, the Emperor Fist radiance and defying immortal divine light appeared at the same time, fiercely clashing. In the blink of an eye, another dozen or so breaths passed. Pooh! Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere. The two of them smashed each other at the same time, flesh and bones flying in the air. Enlongjing activated the primordial divine symbol. Divine light pulsed, intertwined, and her physical body rapidly reformed. Lin Tian activated the Sun Nirvana technique. Blood-colored flames leaped between the pieces of flesh, and the mist of blood and bones instantly condensed together. In the next instant, the two of them condensed their physical bodies at the same time. Staring at Enlongjing, Lin Tian's eyes were cold. The Heart Sutra of Sun was activated to the extreme, and golden divine light pierced through the clouds, making his entire body look like it was made of gold. The surrounding space was dyed in a layer of golden light. Then, he stepped forward and activated the primordial Chaos Emperor Fist to an even stronger level. The deity Phoenix and True Dragon became even more solid than before. Cracking noises arose continuously. As he stepped forward, the void cracked, unable to withstand the power of his fist. Roar! Roar! Next to him, the dragon and Phoenix roared together. Just the sound waves alone made many cultivators in the distance tremble. Some people coughed up blood on the spot. How can he be so terrifying? Retreat! Retreat again! The cultivators' hearts trembled. Enlongjing's eyes were as sharp as swords. Chaotic light erupted from his body, and the 9 levels of the inverse celestial realm became stronger. There were tens of thousands of inverse celestial killing rays, and they pressed down like a waterfall of the Milky Way. Each ray was scarier than the one before, and it clashed with Lin Tian's primordial Chaos Emperor Fist again. Boom! The intense battle caused the surrounding space to collapse. Divine light flickered between Enlongjing's eyebrows, and a heavenly sword rushed out. As if it had passed through space, it slashed at Lin Tian. Such a scene caused many cultivators to be shocked. This is a killing sword that is completely condensed from divine consciousness. It's very difficult for ordinary people to achieve this. This kind of divine consciousness killing sword can kill both the physical body and the soul. So terrifying. Many cultivators' hearts trembled. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. A golden godly sword also rushed out from between his eyebrows and slashed at Enlongjing's heavenly sword. His divine consciousness was extremely powerful, and it wasn't difficult for him to condense this kind of divine consciousness killing sword. In the blink of an eye, the two divine consciousness killing swords collided and exploded at the same time, intertwining with each other and creating specks of divine consciousness light. Swoosh! Suddenly, the sound of the air being torn apart resounded. Enlongjing used a mysterious movement technique as if he teleported, and he appeared before Lin Tian in the blink of an eye. Moreover, at the same time, rumbling resounded as a large river appeared behind him. It was completely formed from primordial chaotic light, and there were actually broken stars intertwining within it. Its supreme divine might directly shook the entire heavens and the earth. Chaotic Physique King's territory, chaotic immortal river. Some experts of the older generation couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Rumbling resounded incessantly as the chaotic immortal river surged and flowed. It seemed as if it was flowing out from an unknown place, and it seemed as if it really existed. It caused the entire heavens and the earth to tremble, and in the blink of an eye, it enveloped Lin Tian. Shit! He's enveloped by the chaotic physique king's territory. This, even if he possesses extraordinary divine abilities, it's useless now. He's finished. The expressions of all the cultivators changed. The chaotic physique king's territory was extremely formidable, and once one was sealed within it, one would be doomed eternally. In the distance, Baiziki watched this scene without a shred of worry for Lin Tian in his eyes, and he couldn't help but open his mouth. On the side, Baichio's eyes widened. In the sky, Anlanjing's gaze was piercingly cold as the chaotic immortal river enveloped Lin Tian. Within it, numerous damaged stars started moving, and it was like a rain of stars that could obliterate the world as they pressed down towards Lin Tian in unison. The chaotic immortal river can destroy immortals. And pooh! Scarlet red blood sprayed out as Lin Tian rose from within the chaotic immortal river and directly smashed apart half of Anlanjing's body. In an instant, the expressions of all the cultivators here changed once more, and their faces were covered in shock and disbelief. How could this be possible? He injured Anlanjing in the chaotic king's territory? He isn't suppressed by the king's territory? The king's territory was the innate divine ability of the king physique. After the king physique supported the king's territory, the king physique could at most surmount 8 levels of cultivation to do battle. It was invincible and practically invincible, and it was the strongest ability of the king physique. Once one was enveloped by the king's territory, an ordinary person could only die miserably. Yet now, Lin Tian wasn't obstructed in the king's territory at all, and he even injured the owner of the king's territory. This shocked everyone. At this moment, even the old monster, the 5-element crocodile, was greatly shocked. This abnormal kid is actually able to move freely in the king's territory? It stared at Lin Tian, and its eyeballs almost popped out. Anlanjing's expression turned grim because his supreme king's territory actually didn't have the slightest effect on Lin Tian. You! Bang! The heavens and the earth shook as Lin Tian's fist pressed down once more. A true dragon coiled around the tip of his fist and emitted a heaven-shaking dragon roar. Pooh! The last half of Anlanjing's body was blasted into powder, and dazzling chaotic divine blood covered the sky. Bang! Shocking divine might charged out from the mist of blood from Anlanjing's shattered body, and then the chaos divine talisman flickered as his body was instantly reformed. He stared at Lin Tian with shock in his eyes, and at the same time, his gaze became even colder and interweaved with boundless killing intent. Again! Lin Tian's expression was cold and indifferent as he spoke at this moment. He took a step forward and swung his chaotic emperor fist once more at Anlanjing. Moreover, in the next moment, his king's territory's reincarnation diagram was pushed up as well. As soon as it charged up, it emanated vast and mighty divine light. It was like a primordial diagram that split open the heavens and the earth, and it seemed as if it could suppress everything in the heavens and the earth. This is a divine ability? Why do I feel like it's even stronger than the chaotic physique's king's territory? Many cultivators were astounded. The reincarnation diagram emanated vast and powerful divine light, and it was swift to the extreme. In the blink of an eye, it appeared before Anlanjing, who'd reformed his body. Anlanjing's black hair fluttered violently while his gaze was terrifying. He'd activated the immortal-defying myriad divine technique to the limit, and numerous rays of killing light surged like a myriad of waves. At the same time, a dense expanse of chaotic immortal tablets charged up from behind him. Every single chaotic immortal tablet was 1.5 m tall, and they were like numerous tombstones that were interwoven with strange ancient markings and possessed a terrifying aura. This was the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness. At this moment, he executed the immortal-defying myriad divine technique, while activating the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness, and all of them collided with the reincarnation diagram. Bang! Instantly, the sky trembled while a destructive mist of light surged like waves, and it surged towards the surroundings. Bang! Anlanjing was blasted flying while his body was covered in blood-colored cracks, and the chaotic immortal tablets that covered the sky shattered as well. On the other side, Lin Tiandao's figure shook violently, and he was blasted over 30 m away just like in Lanjing. The reincarnation diagram in the King region exploded at the first possible moment, and he coughed up a few mouthfuls of blood essence in succession. He steadied his figure over 30 m away while the blood that flowed out of his mouth dyed his chest red, but his gaze was still icy cold. He stared at Lanjing and didn't say a single word before charging forward directly. Bang! Without any unnecessary movements, he just swung his arm and pressed down with an indomitable imposing aura. For a time, various phenomena of the heavens and the earth appeared around him, and their imposing auras shook the heavens and the earth. Lanjing steadied his body, and his gaze became even colder while killing intent surged violently. The murky light around him rumbled and his injuries healed in an instant. He then used the defying immortal layers again and charged at Lin Tian. Hom! The two of them collided. Neither was much weaker than the other. Both of them shook violently and puked out a mouthful of blood. Despite this, the two of them didn't care. They once again stepped forward and charged at each other. Hom! 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 The defying immortal layers and the undefeatable fists continued to clash. Every time they clashed, large amounts of blood would drip down. Both of their physical bodies were being damaged. Pieces of flesh and bones splattered everywhere. However, the two of them didn't care. As they attacked each other, they used different methods to heal themselves. They also unleashed more secret techniques and were extremely shocking. Die! Lin Tian was ruthless. The fifth level of the yin-yang ring flashed. As though it had passed through space, it appeared in front of Lanjing in the blink of an eye. His fist that was intertwined with the phoenix dragon image pierced through Lanjing's chest. Bang! Lanjing was sent flying. However, in the process of retreating, the 100 layers of defying immortal layers pierced through Lin Tian. Both of them were injured. The blood-colored flames on Lin Tian's body flickered as he circulated the Sun Nirvana technique. His chest that was pierced through recovered in the blink of an eye. His eyes were cold as he stepped on the yin-yang ring. With every step he took, an afterimage appeared. He brandished the primal Chaos Emperor fist with his right hand and the High Heaven's Sword Sutra with his left. The reincarnation diagram buzzed and rushed towards Lanjing. The chaotic light around Lanjing's body surged again. The defying immortal layers became even stronger as it pressed down on Lin Tian. Moreover, he once again supported the king's territory's chaotic immortal river and fused it with the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness. In just an instant, the two collided fiercely. Boom! This was an extremely shocking confrontation. The light of the divine ability and the aura of destruction were wantonly at the same time, causing the void to collapse. Lin Tian directly coughed out blood. His body was covered in cracks, and even his bones and internal organs could be seen. He was almost crushed on the spot. At this moment, after Lanjing fused the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness with the king's territory, he could no longer avoid being suppressed. Moreover, because it was the fusion of the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness with the king's territory, the power became far stronger than a single chaotic immortal river. It caused his reincarnation diagram to tremble violently. Just like his body, it was instantly covered in cracks. Naturally, Lanjing wasn't any better. He was suppressed by Lin Tian's chaotic emperor fist, Ling Tian sword sutra, and reincarnation diagram. Blood kept flowing out of his mouth, and the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness was on the verge of destruction. The defying immortal layer's killing light also dissipated continuously. Boom! Boom! The two of them activated their divine energy at the same time and exerted all their strength to suppress each other. In an instant, the divine light and killing light interweaved and directly annihilated everything in the surroundings. Along with the sounds of explosions, bloody mist exploded one after another. Amidst the killing light that filled the sky, their bodies were damaged ceaselessly. Both of them became tattered, and even their internal organs were shattered. Die! Lanjing's gaze was terrifying. At this moment, a boundless chaotic mist suddenly appeared, and a few tens of damaged immortal mountains and thousands of damaged ancient palaces appeared. As soon as they appeared, they emitted an extremely oppressive aura. Chapter 889. Two clouds of blood mist intertwined in the air. Pieces of flesh and bones scattered everywhere, causing all the nearby cultivators to tremble. Both of you shattered each other. Someone trembled and stared ahead with palpitations. Boom! Boom! In the sky, two waves of divine power surged. Lin Tian's broken body wriggled, and wisps of blood-red flames leaped. In the blink of an eye, his body was reformed. On the other side, Unlanjing's broken body, the Chaos Divine Talisman flickered with a strange light, and almost at the same time, a body was formed. The two stared at each other without any words. Their eyes were cold, and like two bolts of lightning, they collided again. For a moment, the Emperor Fist's light and the immortal defying divine light appeared at the same time and clashed fiercely. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths passed. Poof! Poof! Blood splattered. The two of them shattered each other at the same time, and blood, flesh, and bones flew all over the sky. Unlanjing activated the Chaos Divine Talisman. Divine light flickered, and spiritual light intertwined. Her body was reformed at an extremely fast speed. Lin Tian activated the sun's nirvana technique. Blood-red flames leaped between the pieces of flesh, and the blood mist and broken bones instantly gathered together. In the next moment, the two of them condensed their bodies at the same time. Staring at Unlanjing, Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He activated the Sun Heart Sutra to the extreme. Golden divine light suddenly broke through the clouds, making his whole body seem like it was made of gold, and the surrounding space was dyed with a layer of golden light. Then, he stepped forward and activated the Chaos Emperor Fist to a stronger level. The immortal Phoenix True Dragon became more solid than before. Cracking sounds kept ringing out. As he stepped forward, the void kept cracking, unable to withstand the power of his fist. Roar! Roar! Beside him, the dragon and Phoenix roared. Just the sound waves alone made many cultivators in the distance tremble. Some coughed up blood on the spot. How can he be so terrifying? Retreat! Retreat again! The cultivators' hearts trembled. Unlanjing's eyes were like swords, and the chaotic light around her body skyrocketed. The immortal defying killing light also became stronger. The immortal defying killing light was 10,000 layers. It pressed down like a waterfall, and each layer was more terrifying than the last. Once again, it collided with Lin Tian, who was waving the Emperor Fist. Boom! The intense confrontation caused the surrounding space to continuously collapse. Unlanjing's glabella flashed with divine light as a heavenly sword shot out. It seemed to have pierced through space as it slashed toward Lin Tian. Such a scene caused many cultivators to be shocked. This is a killing sword that is completely condensed from one's divine sense is very difficult for the average person to do. Such a divine sense killing sword can slay both the physical body and the divine soul. It's scary. The hearts of many cultivators trembled. Lin Tian's eyes were cold, and a golden divine sword shot out from between his brows, slashing towards Unlanjing's heavenly sword. His spiritual sense was incomparably tyrannical. Condensing such a spiritual sense killing sword was not a difficult matter at all. In the blink of an eye, the two divine sense killing swords collided and exploded, interweaving into specks of divine sense light. Shwa! Suddenly, the sound of air breaking rang out. Unlanjing used a mysterious movement technique as if she had teleported. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of Lin Tian. Moreover, at the same time, with a rumble, a large river appeared behind him. It was completely composed of primordial chaotic light, and there were actually broken stars interweaving in it. The supreme divine power directly shook the entire world. King's territory of the chaotic body, chaotic immortal river. Some of the older generation experts could not help but exclaim. The rumbling sound was incessant. The chaotic immortal river rolled and flowed as if it was flowing out from an eternal unknown place. As if it was real, it caused the entire world to shake. In the blink of an eye, Lin Tian was enveloped in it. Oh no! Being enveloped by the king's territory of the chaotic body, this, Even if he has a powerful divine ability, it's useless now. It's over. The crowd of cultivators immediately changed their expressions. How powerful was the king's territory of the chaotic body? Once sealed in it, there would be no escape. In the distance, Baiziki watched this scene. There was not the slightest bit of worry for Lin Tian in his eyes. He could not help but open his mouth. Beside him, Baichio's eyes widened. In the sky, Anlanjing's eyes were cold. The chaotic immortal river enveloped Lin Tian, and the broken stars in it all moved. Like a world-destroying star rain, they pressed down on Lin Tian together. The chaotic immortal river can destroy immortals' form. Pft! Bright red blood splashed out. Lin Tian rose into the sky from the chaotic immortal river and directly smashed half of Anlanjing's body. Instantly, the expressions of many cultivators changed again. Their faces were filled with shock and disbelief. How is this possible? He injured Anlanjing in the king's territory of the chaotic body? He is not suppressed by the king's territory? The king's territory was the innate mystical ability of the king's territory. After the king's territory was supported by the king's territory, one could fight across 8 small realms at most and be invincible. It was the strongest means of the king's territory. Once enveloped by the king's territory, ordinary people would only die tragically. However, Lin Tian could now move around the king's territory without any hindrance, and even injure the owner of the king's territory. That shocked everyone. At this moment, even the old demon, Wishing Crocodile, was shocked. This psychopath can actually move freely in the king's territory. It stared at Lin Tian, and its eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Anlanjing's expression changed drastically. His powerful king's territory had no effect on Lin Tian at all. You boom! Heaven and earth shook, and Lin Tian's fist pressed down again. A true dragon coiled around the tip of his fist and let out an earth-shattering dragon roar. With a pft, the last half of Anlanjing's body was also blasted into powder, and the glaring chaotic divine blood floated all over the sky. Boom! Anlanjing's shattered body surged with astonishing divine power and the blood mist. The Chaos Essence divine talisman flickered, and his physical body was instantly reconstructed. He stared at Lin Tian with shock in his eyes. At the same time, his gaze became even colder, intertwined with endless murderous intent. Again! Lin Tian said with an indifferent expression. At this moment, he took a step forward and punched Anlanjing with the chaotic emperor's fist again. Moreover, in the next moment, with a buzzing sound, he propped up the reincarnation diagram of the king's region. As soon as it surged up, it emitted a mighty and divine immortal light. It was like a primordial sacred diagram that opened the sky, and it seemed to be able to suppress everything in the world. This is a mystical ability. Why do I feel that it's even stronger than the king's territory with the chaotic body? Many cultivators were shocked. The reincarnation diagram emitted a mighty and powerful divine light and was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it appeared in front of Anlanjing, who had reconstructed his physical body. Anlanjing's black hair danced wildly, and his gaze was terrifying. He activated the immortal defying 10,000 layers divine technique to the limit. Rays of murderous light surged like thousands of immortal waves. At the same time, a dense expanse of chaotic immortal tablets charged out from behind him. Every single one of them was around 1.5 m tall, and they were like numerous tombstones. All of them were interweaved with strange ancient markings, and their auras were terrifying and horrifying. That was the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness. At this moment, he was using the immortal defying 10,000 layers divine technique, while activating the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness to face the reincarnation diagram. Boom! In an instant, the sky shook, and a destructive light mist surged in all directions like waves. With a bang, Anlanjing was sent flying. His body was covered in blood-colored cracks, and the chaos immortal tablets that filled the sky shattered together. On the opposite side, Lin Tiandao's body shook violently. Like Anlanjing, he was also sent flying more than 100 feet away. The reincarnation diagram of the king's territory exploded immediately, and he coughed out several mouthfuls of blood essence. He stabilized his body more than 100 feet away, and the blood that flowed out of his mouth stained his chest red. However, his eyes were still cold. Staring at Enlanging, he didn't say a single word and simply rushed forward. Boom! Without any unnecessary movements, he simply waved his arm and pressed down with an indomitable aura. All of a sudden, the immortal phoenix, true dragon, vermilion bird, and black tortoise all appeared around him, and his aura shook the world. Enlanging stabilized his body, and his eyes became even colder as killing intent surged. The chaotic light around his body surged, and his injuries were instantly healed. He then used the immortal defying 10,000 layers divine technique to face Lin Tian. Boom! The two collided, and neither was much weaker than the other. Both of them trembled violently and coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, even so, the two of them ignored each other and stepped forward again to attack each other. Boom! 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 The immortal defying killing light and the Emperor's fist continued to collide. Every time they collided, a large amount of blood would fall, causing their physical bodies to be continuously damaged. Shredded flesh and bone fragments splattered all over the sky. However, the two of them still didn't care. While attacking each other, they used different methods to heal their injured bodies and propped up more divine abilities and mystic techniques. Their power was extremely terrifying. Kill! Lin Tian was ruthless. The fifth level of Yin and Yang Rou flashed and appeared in front of Enlanging in the blink of an eye, as if it had passed through space. He directly pierced his fist, which was intertwined with the Phoenix Dragon Divine Shadow, into Enlanging's chest. Bang! Enlanging was sent flying, but in the process of retreating, the 100 layers of immortal defying divine light also pierced through Lin Tian. Both of them were injured. The sanguine flames on the surface of Lin Tian's body jumped, and the Nirvana of the Sun technique was activated. In the blink of an eye, his chest that had been pierced through recovered. His gaze was cold as he stepped on the Yin and Yang Rou, creating afterimages with each step. He waved the Chaos Emperor's fist with his right hand and the Ling Tian Sword Sutra with his left hand. The reincarnation diagram even buzzed and rushed behind him, pressing towards Enlanging. The chaotic light around Enlanging's body surged again, and the immortal defying 10,000 layers divine ability became even stronger as it pressed down on Lin Tian. Moreover, he once again propped up the chaotic immortal river of the king's territory and fused it with the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness, intertwining with an even more terrifying destructive power. In the blink of an eye, the two collided fiercely. Boom! It was an extremely shocking confrontation. The light of the divine ability and the destructive aura were rampant at the same time, causing the void to collapse. Lin Tian immediately coughed up blood, and his body was covered in cracks. Even his bones and internal organs could be seen, and he was almost crushed on the spot. At this moment, after Enlanging fused the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness with the king's territory, he could no longer simply not be suppressed. Moreover, due to the fusion of the phenomenon in his sea of consciousness with the king's territory, the power became far stronger than the chaotic immortal river alone, causing his reincarnation diagram to tremble violently. Just like his body, it was also instantly covered in cracks. Enlanging was naturally not any better. She was suppressed by Lin Tian's Chaos Emperor's fist, the Ling Tian Sword Sutra, and the reincarnation diagram. Blood kept flowing out of her mouth, and the chaotic immortal river and the phenomenon in her sea of consciousness were on the verge of destruction. The immortal defying 10,000 layers divine ability was also constantly dissipating. Boom! Boom! The two of them activated their divine power at the same time and exerted all their strength to suppress each other. In an instant, divine light and murderous light intertwined and directly annihilated everything around them. Following a series of popping sounds, the bloody mist exploded one after another. Amidst the killing light that filled the sky, the bodies of the two were continuously damaged, becoming tattered. Even their internal organs had been shattered. Die! Enlanging's gaze was terrifying. At this moment, an expanse of boundless chaotic mist of light rumbled into appearance, and there were a few tens of damaged immortal mountains and a myriad of damaged ancient palaces laid horizontally within it. As soon as they appeared, they emanated an extremely oppressive aura. Chapter 890. The damaged immortal peak and damaged palace appeared together, and they interweaved with strands of boundless chaotic light mist. A strand of terrifying and oppressive fluctuation spread throughout the sky, causing this expanse of the heavens and the earth to seem as if it had instantly become much dimmer. It doesn't feel any weaker than the immortal defying myriad technique. It's terrifying. Many cultivators felt their hearts palpitate. Lin Tian's body shook violently, and he immediately coughed out another mouthful of blood. More cracks appeared on his body, and the reincarnation diagram and other techniques he held up also shook under the pressure, as if they were about to collapse at any moment. This caused him to be moved. When the damaged immortal mountain and the damaged palace appeared, he immediately felt the threat of death. However, he was not afraid. Even though his body was covered in blood, his eyes were still cold as he directly summoned the four symbols seal. Buzz! In an instant, 2 silver Tao diagrams appeared, vast and mighty with wisps of silver light, as if they were about to suppress the world. Seal! He coldly spat out a word. With a wing sound, the 2 layers of 4 symbols Tao diagrams shook, quickly enlarging, covering himself and enlarging within. Instantly, the damaged immortal mountain and the damaged palace that enlarging held up trembled violently, and their power weakened by more than 10 times. Even the power of the chaos immortal river and the sea of consciousness merged together dimmed, and the immortal defying killing light was quickly collapsing. These 2 silver diagrams, it doesn't feel like an offensive divine ability. It doesn't have a strong killing power, but it feels like it can suppress everything. I feel the same way. Many cultivators were shocked again. Anlanjing was also moved at this time. She only felt the power around her constantly dissipating, and even the flow of her divine power became somewhat unsmooth. She could not control the divine ability and King's domain that she used very well. After being hit by Lin Tian's reincarnation diagram and other techniques, her King's body trembled violently, and blood gushed out of her mouth. Half of her body was almost crushed. Clang! The ear-piercing sound of a sword reverberated. Lin Tian moved again at this time, using the 4 symbols seal and the reincarnation diagram to suppress, and the High Heaven Sword Manual and the Chaos Emperor to attack. Like a flash flood, he immediately shattered the surrounding void. Anlanjing shuddered. More cracks appeared on her body, and the cold light in her eyes grew thicker. He released a low roar. His head of black hair danced about chaotically as he unleashed all of his great techniques. Chaotic light covered the skies as he rushed murderously towards Lin Tian like a divine being. Kill! Kill! The 2 of them roared at the same time, their voices shaking the sky. For a time, all kinds of killing lights collided head-on, directly destroying everything within a radius of several hundred feet. Boom! The divine light of destruction was like a turbulent sea, causing many cultivators to tremble in fear. At this moment, many people couldn't even speak. Frightening terror, these were the only 2 words that many cultivators could think of to describe the 2 of them. Lin Tian's black hair fluttered in the wind. He strode forward like an emperor, his right hand brandishing the emperor's fist, while his left hand brandished the sword scripture. The divine diagram suppressed all directions. Anlanjing's eyes were chilly. She was like a divine being that appeared in this world. Her divine technique and monarch's domain both became even more powerful, as if she wanted to destroy everything. The 2 of them clashed intensely, shattering the space inch by inch. After several dozen breaths of time, all of the divine abilities and magical techniques collapsed at the same time. The 2 of them shattered their physical bodies at the same time, each of them exploding in the sky. However, it was only an instant. The 2 of them reformed their physical bodies once again. Boundless killing lights filled the sky as they once again attacked each other. For a time, all kinds of divine abilities and secret techniques were displayed once again. The earth continuously collapsed as strands of electric arcs interweaved, spreading in all directions. Everything in their path was destroyed. Pooh! Pooh! Once again, the two of them were blasted apart by each other at the same time. Blood filled the sky. Lin Tian operated the sun's nirvana technique. Blood-colored flames leaped about. In the blink of an eye, he reformed his physical body and attacked Enlongjing once again. Within Enlongjing's minced flesh, the Chaos Origin Divine Talisman leaped about. She also reformed her physical body at the first instant, and rushed forward with killing lights. Boom! 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 This part of the sky was continuously collapsing because of the battle between the two of them. In the surroundings, the group of cultivators was forced to continuously retreat. They had already retreated several thousand feet in a row. This is really only a battle of the Great Tao level. To be in the same generation as these two, it's really quite sad. A few powerful young cultivators shook their heads in desolation. On the battlefield, Lin Tian and Enlongjing were both covered in blood. Their complexions had become much paler. However, their eyes were incomparably cold. Divine light lingered around each of them. It was as if heavenly gods had descended to the mortal world. They fought until the sky trembled and the earth collapsed. Pooh! Lin Tian brandished the Emperor's fist and the reincarnation diagram, shattering everything. He shattered Enlongjing high up in the sky, blood splattering everywhere. However, at the same time, the dozens of immortal mountains and thousands of palaces supported by Enlongjing also enveloped him with a rumble, shattering him into pieces in the sky. Boom! Boom! The two waves of divine power were vast and mighty. Enlongjing supported them with the mixed origin divine talisman, while Lin Tian activated the sun's nirvana technique. The shattered flesh quickly gathered towards the center and began to recombine. However, the speed of recombination was clearly much slower than at the beginning. This caused many cultivators to be moved. They all revealed strange expressions. Their divine power is about to be completely exhausted. It's already less than 20% of their peak state. They've all suffered extremely serious injuries. This battle will end very soon, an older generation cultivator said. In front, Lin Tian and Enlongjing reformed their bodies. Their complexions became even paler, and they were slightly panting. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth interweaved in all directions, surrounding the two. Their eyes were very cold. Lin Tian's clothes were stained with blood. His eyes were cold. His right hand shook, and the immortal phoenix true dragon reappeared. The might of the Chaos Emperor's fist rose again. Boom! Suddenly, the sky trembled violently. A wave of terrifying killing power appeared, pressing down from not far away, shocking everyone. Outside the battlefield, a slender man walked over. The void beside him was interwoven with dense formation patterns. They were all very tyrannical. His black hair draped over his shoulders, and his face carried a cold arrogance that ignored everything. He stared at Lin Tian as if he was staring at his prey. This is the young king of the central region, the formation control king, Lin Xingluo. The killing formation outside his body seems to be a complete 7th level killing formation. Moreover, there are so many of them. So many killing formations. Even an early stage Wuxian cultivator can't block it. What is he doing? Many cultivators were shocked. Lin Xingluo stepped into the battlefield and pushed dozens of killing formations past. It was as if the formation emperor was reborn. His momentum was terrifying. He stared at Lin Tian as if he was looking down on his subjects. With a wave of his right hand, a ray of resplendent killing light directly attacked Lin Tian. Immediately, the crowd was shocked again. He's coming towards that person! At the same time, in the distance, Baiziki's group and Wishing Crocodile's expression changed. *CK your grandfather. Little bastard, what are you doing? Wishing Crocodile roared. Boom! Ling Xingluo's killing light was extremely tyrannical. In an instant, it closed in on Lin Tian. Lin Tian did not dare to be careless. At this time, he used all his strength to activate the 3 styles of Lin Tian. However, he was still forced back a few steps. What do you mean? He stared at Ling Xingluo with cold eyes. He had many enemies, but he remembered all of them. This person was definitely not one of them. Ling Xingluo stared at Lin Tian and stepped forward step by step. Give me the eternity, and I can consider letting you go. Hearing this, Lin Tian's eyes suddenly shot out two cold killing lights. Desolate shrine, he said coldly. Hearing him mention these 4 words, most of the cultivators here were puzzled. They did not know what the desolate shrine was. However, there were few people who knew these 4 words, including in Lanjing. At this moment, their eyes suddenly narrowed. In the distance, Wishing Crocodile's expression also changed. Desolate shrine, this little bastard is from the desolate shrine. It stared at Ling Xingluo in shock. What is the desolate shrine? Bai Ziki asked. Yang Qi and Bai Ziki also looked at it. Clearly, they did not know much about the desolate shrine. Wishing Crocodile transmitted. It is a peak faction of the 9 heavens. It has existed for at least 100,000 years. Its foundation is frighteningly deep. It is one of the behemoths that can truly look down on the 100,000 heaven domains. It has at least a dozen half-step emperors and primordial heavenly treasure artifacts. It is very terrifying. It is even rumored that there is a true emperor overseeing it. What? Hearing this, Bai Ziki and the other 2 were shocked. A peak faction of the 9 heavens that had existed for more than 100,000 years. It had dozens of half-step emperors and primordial heavenly treasure artifacts. It was even possible that there was a true emperor rank expert. Wishing Crocodile's expression became serious. This is a giant faction that focuses on formation controlling techniques. Its strength is very terrifying, and it seems like it is plotting something. As it spoke, it looked at Lin Tian and bared its fangs. This little brat, he's only reached the 5th heavenly layer. How did he manage to offend the desolate divine temple in the 9th heavenly layer? In the sky, Lin Tian's clothes were stained with blood, but his eyes were colder than before. When he stared at Ling Xingluo, the killing intent in his eyes was undisguised. When he was still in the 3rd heaven, the desolate shrine had sent people to the lower worlds to hunt him down. At that time, he had almost died. He did not expect that in the 5th heaven, someone from the same faction would make a move against him. Sooner or later your faction will be uprooted. His voice was cold. Ling Xingluo sneered, and killing runes intertwined around his body. His aura was very terrifying. You dare to say such words? Ridiculous. He stared at Lin Tian and said, I'm not afraid to tell you this. The reason why I came to the lower realms is precisely for you. I know that you will definitely enter this heaven region and obtain eternity from your body. I will directly become a divine child from a divine child candidate. Divine son candidate. The killing intent in Lin Tian's eyes became even stronger. He did not expect that Ling Xingluo had such an identity in the desolate shrine. Ling Xingluo looked down at Lin Tian like an emperor. Give me the eternal, and I will consider not killing you. If you don't, then I will personally take it. However, when that time comes, you will die very miserably. Do you think you can kill me? Lin Tianling sneered. Ling Xingluo coldly snorted. If you were in your peak condition, I might not be able to do anything to you. However, what do you think your current condition is? How much combat strength do you have left? He stared at Lin Tian, his eyes cold. 24 complete killing formations have already been completed, interweaving around me, forming a perfect killing formation. Right now, even if an early Wuzhen expert came, I would still kill him without hesitation. With your current condition, can you even compare to an early Wuzhen expert? As the sound of his voice faded, a thunderous boom rang out as the killing runes around him trembled. Killing intent gushed forth, shattering the space around him. Chapter 891. Thunderous rumbles resounded in all directions. There were a total of 24 complete killing arrays around Ling Xingluo's body. Strands of killing runes interweaved like destructive heavenly tribulation lightning. The killing aura was extremely shocking, causing everyone's expression to change. This He can really kill ordinary enlightened realm experts. It's terrifying. Many people were shocked. With so many killing arrays intertwined together, Ling Xingluo was in an invincible position. Ling Xingluo looked at Lin Tian. I'll give you one last chance. Give me the eternity, and I'll consider letting you go. Around him, strands of killing light shone, making him look like a god of death. You can kill me? Lin Tian's eyes were cold. Although he felt the terror of the dozens of killing arrays outside Ling Xingluo's body, his expression did not change at all. He was calm and composed. You're digging your own grave. Ling Xingluo's face darkened. He immediately moved, pushing the dozens of killing arrays towards Lin Tian. I gave you a chance, but you didn't cherish it. Now, even if you kneel and beg for mercy, it's useless. As his words fell, the dozens of killing arrays outside his body boiled together. Dense killing light rushed up, cutting the sky and shattering the earth. Crack! 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 The surrounding void was constantly shattered, and the earth was constantly collapsing. The terrifying power made some experts at the peak of the ninth heaven of the Great Path tremble in fear. They could not help but shudder. Oh no! If that ruthless person was at his peak, he might be able to barely handle it. But now, his divine power seems to be less than 20%. His combat power has been greatly reduced. It's impossible to block it. Many cultivators' faces changed. In the distance, Baiziki's group and Wishing Crocodile were also moved. At this moment, they all moved towards the battlefield. I'll crush your body and refine your soul. I'll take the eternity myself. Ling Xingluo's voice was cold and arrogant. The void rumbled. The dozens of killing arrays outside his body became even more terrifying. The dense killing light tore through everything. Seeing Ling Xingluo coming towards him, Lin Tian's expression did not change. His eyes were still cold. I'll kill you, he said coldly. As his words fell, 49 bone flags suddenly floated out of his body with a whoosh. Each bone flag was engraved with dense and complicated patterns. Boom! In the blink of an eye, monstrous chi appeared. Like rolling gray clouds, it covered the sky and enveloped everything. This aura, is it also a killing array? Looking at this scene, everyone's expressions changed again. Baiziki's trio, as well as Wishing Crocodile, who were heading towards the center of the battlefield, stopped in their tracks. Their eyes shone brightly. It's the 49 bone flags found in the underground tomb. Wishing Crocodile bared his teeth. I forgot that this brat still has such a great killing weapon. It's enough to seal anyone under the third heaven of Wujin to death. That Luo is doomed. Bai Qiu agreed. Boom! In the sky, the 49 bone flags fluttered out. Supported by Lin Tian's will, they surrounded Ling Xingluo in the blink of an eye. In the blink of an eye, densely packed demonic chi patterns appeared. Even the faint roar of ferocious beasts could be heard. The entire space rumbled. Tiny black holes intertwined with each other. The destructive aura was vast and mighty. Such a terrifying killing intent caused the surrounding cultivators' expressions to change again. Even someone as strong as Enlanjing could not help but be moved. Ling Xingluo was trapped by the 49 bone flags, and his expression changed drastically. You! The 49 bone flags surrounded him, and the demonic runes filled the sky, causing him to feel the threat of death. The dozens of killing arrays around him began to tremble, and the densely packed array runes shook violently, as if they would be crushed in the next moment. Kill! A cold word came out from Lin Tian's mouth. In the blink of an eye, the 49 bone flags trembled. The demonic chi patterns on the flags seemed to come alive, rolling up the sky full of demonic clouds. In the blink of an eye, the aura of extermination was vast and mighty. As the 49 bone flags trembled, more and more tiny black holes appeared, swallowing everything in the surroundings. The scene was extremely terrifying. At this moment, the dense spiritual energy in this world condensed and turned into ancient ferocious beasts. They roared and rushed towards Ling Xingluo. Swish! With a crisp sound, A large number of formation patterns outside Ling Xingluo's body were annihilated. Damn it! Kill for me! Ling Xingluo was shocked and angry. He no longer had the calm and cold arrogance he had when he first appeared. With a rumble, the killing arrays around him all shone brightly. They intertwined with an even more tyrannical killing light, destroying everything in its path. This kind of might was very strong, and could definitely kill ordinary experts in the initial stage of Wuzhen. However, at this time, compared to the vast and mighty might of the 49 bone flags, it was quite a bit lacking. It was simply unable to fight against the dense demon-marked brands. Boom! The 49 bone flags trembled and more demonic chi rushed out. The billowing demonic chi was like a flood that was about to annihilate everything. Ling Xingluo's face was extremely ugly. He roared and the remaining killing arrays outside his body emitted even more dazzling light. At the same time, he supported a powerful secret technique to attack the 49 bone flags outside his body. However, the 49 bone flags were incomparably terrifying. It was as if they were suppressing the world. With a light shake, they obliterated all the secret techniques that Ling Xingluo had supported. Moreover, they also destroyed another killing array outside his body. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He raised his hand and waved. The 49 bone flags shook again, and the dense demonic chi roared together. With a bang, Ling Xingluo was sent flying a few feet away. He coughed up blood and 3 more killing arrays outside his body were destroyed. Open for me! Ling Xingluo roared and supported a divine weapon. He used the divine weapon to support the killing arrays outside his body, causing them to become stronger. Lin Tian's eyes were cold and emotionless. He used his mind to control the 49 bone flags, causing them to erupt with a stronger demonic aura. Swish! 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 Immediately, the killing arrays outside Ling Xingluo's body were shattered again. Even the divine weapon that he had summoned was destroyed. So scary! Even the divine weapon is destroyed! This ruthless person, he actually controls such a great killing array. This is really... All around, many cultivators were shocked. The sky rumbled and trembled. The 49 bone flags fluttered in the wind, absorbing spiritual chi from all directions. They evolved into ferocious beasts that roared and charged towards Ling Xingluo. Suddenly, a rumbling sound was heard. Another part of the killing arrays outside Ling Xingluo's body was shattered. His body trembled violently under the pressure of the peerless demonic aura and exploded in the next moment. Damn it! Ling Xingluo roared. His flesh wriggled and quickly reformed. His face became even uglier and paler with fear. He roared and carved out strange runes, causing the killing arrays outside his body to boil and attack the 49 bone flags outside his body. At this time, he was trapped in the middle of the 49 bone flags. The demonic aura caused his heart to turn cold. The threat of death was getting stronger and stronger. If he couldn't break out soon, he would definitely die under the 49 bone flags. Boom! Outside his body, the killing arrays lit up and the killing aura became stronger. The killing aura was like a divine light pillar that pierced through the clouds, causing the 49 bone flags to tremble incessantly. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He stood quietly on the side and watched Ling Xingluo attack the 49 bone flags. Boom! With another rumble, the 49 bone flags became even more terrifying. They penetrated the killing arrays outside Ling Xingluo's body and destroyed him once again. At the same time, the demonic beasts formed by the runes on the bone flags roared and pounced on Ling Xingluo's soul. Ling Xingluo's flesh trembled violently as he quickly reformed his body. With a roar, he burned his life essence and used his blood essence to fuel the killing formation around him. He barely managed to destroy the beasts that were charging at him. Break for me! He roared. At this moment, as he burned his life source and used his blood essence to activate the remaining killing arrays outside his body, the killing arrays became even more terrifying. It was as if they wanted to destroy everything. However, the 49 bone flags came from the hands of a super demonic beast saint. Although most of them were broken and their killing aura was not as strong as before, they were still extremely terrifying. Under Lin Tian's will, they destroyed all of Ling Xingluo's resistance and crushed him once again. So terrifying. The surrounding cultivators felt a chill in their hearts. Boom! 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 The 49 bone flags trembled, and the demonic runes filled the sky. They began to emit even more dazzling killing aura. With a puff sound, Ling Xingluo's newly reformed body was shattered again. At the same time, the remaining killing arrays outside his body collapsed and were shattered by the demonic aura emitted by the 49 bone flags. Ling Xingluo quickly reformed his body. His eyes were filled with fear, and his body was trembling. He was one of the candidates of this generation's Son of God in the 9th heaven. Naturally, he knew some of the secrets of the temple. He knew that Lin Tian controlled the legendary eternal killing array, and that the temple was looking for it. Therefore, he came from the 9th heaven and waited for Lin Tian in the 5th heaven. He knew that Lin Tian would definitely come to the 5th heaven for experiential learning. He was very clear that as long as he could obtain the eternal killing array from Lin Tian, it would be a great contribution to the Desolation Shrine. It would allow him to directly rise from a deity child candidate to a deity child of the Desolation Shrine. In fact, he already knew that Lin Tian had come to this heaven a long time ago. Because he had heard many things about Lin Tian, he had been secretly looking for Lin Tian. Unfortunately, he didn't see Lin Tian until he stepped into this world. He knew that Lin Tian had become very powerful now, so he found Lin Tian in this world. When he saw the battle between Lin Tian and Enlanjing, he didn't rush forward. Instead, he silently engraved killing arrays outside the battlefield, patiently waiting until Lin Tian and Enlanjing were seriously injured. Only then did he make a move, pushing dozens of killing arrays to suppress Lin Tian. Originally, he had full confidence that he could kill Lin Tian in this situation and seize the complete eternal killing array from Lin Tian. Even if an early-stage Enlightenment Realm powerhouse interfered with him, he wouldn't be afraid at all. However, he'd never imagined that Lin Tian actually possessed 49 bone banners like this. Damn it! He roared, his face full of unwillingness. Lin Tian stood outside the 49 bone flags and looked at Ling Xingluo coldly. He flicked his finger, and a ray of golden light flew out and sank into the 49 bone flags. Boom! The 49 bone flag trembled violently as the demonic aura emanating from it grew even more violent. Dense demonic runes flew out from the bone flag, drawing in the surrounding spiritual energy to form even more primordial beasts, which then transformed into a torrent of destruction that charged toward Ling Xingluo. You pooh! Ling Xingluo was crushed again, and blood filled the sky. He roared, and the pieces of flesh and bones gathered, quickly reforming his body. The aura outside his body was weak, and his eyes were full of fear. He couldn't help but tremble. Let me go! I promise I won't trouble you again! Chapter 892. The 49 bone flags were even more terrifying. Lin Tian stood at the side, coldly looking at Ling Xingluo. Are you begging me for mercy? He looked down at Ling Xingluo indifferently. Ling Xingluo trembled when he heard that. He was a candidate for this generation's god's son. His talent was extraordinary and his status was respected. But now, Lin Tian asked him such a question. His face immediately turned ashen. But even so, he could only endure because he was the meat on the chopping board and Lin Tian was the butcher's knife. Yes. He gritted his teeth. I can't hear you clearly. Lin Tian looked down at him. Ling Xingluo trembled and clenched his fists. He clenched his teeth and shouted. I'm begging you. Please don't kill me. Please let me go. His fingernails dug into his palms, and blood flowed out. His heart was filled with boundless killing intent for Lin Tian, but he didn't dare show it on his face. He just wanted to preserve his life. This, how shameful. Exactly. Many people pointed at Ling Xingluo. At the beginning, Ling Xingluo appeared to be in high spirits, looking down on Lin Tian. But now, he was trembling in front of Lin Tian, begging Lin Tian for mercy. The contrast was too obvious. TSK, this kid is really unlucky. He really lost face. Wishing Crocodile looked at Ling Xingluo and shook his head. He didn't hide the ridicule in his eyes. Serves him right, Baiqiu said. Boom! In the sky, demonic aura surged and rumbled. Demonic runes jumped around like generals. I heard you, Lin Tian said. With a rumbling sound, the 49 bone flags trembled violently as a terrifying demonic aura gushed out, as though it wanted to refine the entire area. Countless beasts roared as they fixed their eyes on Ling Xingluo, before rushing towards him. Ling Xingluo trembled and shouted anxiously. I've already begged for mercy, and you still want to kill me! Did I say that I won't kill you if you beg for mercy? Lin Tian's voice was emotionless. You! Boom! The 49 bone flags shook at the same time. Dozens of ferocious beasts roared and submerged Ling Xingluo in an instant. Pooh! Ling Xingluo directly exploded. This time, even his divine soul couldn't escape. It was directly crushed by the 49 bone flags. For a moment, the entire place was silent. Immediately after, quite a few cultivators trembled. Another young king was killed by Lin Tian. This person is simply a young king killer! Someone shuddered. In the distance, the wishing crocodile couldn't help but roll its eyes. This killing is satisfying, but we'll be targeted by a huge monster next. As it said this, it suddenly realized something and muttered. Oh, it seems like we've been targeted for a long time. In the sky, demonic might rolled like rolling gray clouds. Lin Tian turned around and looked at Enlanjing again. All of a sudden, many cultivators around were shocked. This person now has those 49 bone flags. Even if an expert at the peak of the second sky of Enlightenment realm came, he could only be refined and killed. Enlanjing is also seriously injured right now. His battle strength is far from his peak. He can't possibly resist. Some powerhouses couldn't help but say. All of a sudden, outside the battlefield, all the cultivators were moved. Looking at Lin Tian, their expressions suddenly changed again and again. However, it was also at this moment that a crisp sound suddenly came out. Crack! Behind Lin Tian, a bone flag shattered and directly broke into pieces. Immediately, cracking sounds sounded one after another. All 49 bone flags were broken and fell from the sky. Suddenly, the demonic might that filled the sky disappeared without a trace. This space became bright again in an instant. It's all broken! It's too fragile. Could it be a one-time killing forbidden weapon? Many people were stupefied. Such a terrifying set of 49 bone banners, yet they were all shattered with just a single strike. In the distance, Wishing Crocodile rolled her eyes and said, just as Master Crocodile guessed at the time, because the damage is too serious, it can only be used once, and it won't last long. In the sky, Lin Tian was stained with blood, and his clothes were fluttering. It's your turn. He stared at Enlanjing with a cold expression. With a boom, a dazzling golden light surged out from his body, dyeing his hair golden. His body was slender, and he walked towards Enlanjing step by step like the Ruoxian emperor. Every step made the sky tremble. Enlanjing's eyes shot two cold lights that were almost solid. Lin Tian's posture made her very uncomfortable. His black hair danced, and the light in his eyes was even more terrifying. The chaotic light intertwined, and the king's territory's chaotic immortal river rushed up behind him like the Milky Way. At the same time, a wave of great Tao nomological laws swept out from his body, and in an instant, Tao light overflowed. This is the Chaos Great Tao. The fourth Great Tao among the 3,000 Great Tao. Sure enough, the Great Tao comprehended by the Chaos Constitution must be the Chaos Great Tao. This is the king's body. You are born with such a cultivation advantage. Once you step into the Great Tao domain, you can easily comprehend the Great Tao that has a similar aura to your own king's body origin. The Great Tao that has a similar aura to the king's body origin is all ranked at the top. How great would it be if I also had a king's body? Many cultivators looked at Enlanging in surprise and envy. Boom! As soon as the Chaos Great Tao appeared, the entire space shook, and chaotic immortal lotuses appeared. In the blink of an eye, they covered every corner of the space and surrounded Lin Tian in the middle like chaotic immortal generals. Bai Ziki and the other two, as well as Wishing Crocodile, were all shocked. They could see that these chaotic immortal lotuses were evolved from the Chaos Great Tao, and each of them contained terrifying Tao power. They could definitely easily crush a peak Great Tao powerhouse to death. Wishing Crocodile said in a low voice, "I wonder if that kid's nameless Great Tao can rival the Chaos Great Tao." "It definitely can. I believe in him." Bai Qiu clenched his fists. The four people and the crocodile all looked at Lin Tian. Lin Tian's expression was cold. He faced the sky full of chaotic immortal lotuses and looked at Enlanging, who was surging with chaotic light. His expression did not change at all, and his footsteps did not change at all. The reincarnation map rushed out from behind him with a buzz. Then, in the next moment, wisps of Tao light surged out from his body. They flickered with a faint strange light, mysterious and hazy. "This is the great Tao nomological laws! It is the great Tao nomological laws! There are fluctuations of Tao. But what kind of Tao is this? I'm not sure. But why does it feel like I'm looking at the vast starry sky?" Many people looked at Lin Tian and were stunned. They could not understand what kind of Tao the Tao nomological laws outside Lin Tian's body was. At this moment, not only these people, but even Enlanging's eyes narrowed, and a hint of doubt flashed in them. However, this was only for a moment. In the next moment, the doubt in his eyes disappeared and was covered by cold killing intent again. With a rumble, he supported the Chaos Great Tao. The chaotic light of the Great Tao surged, and the densely packed chaotic immortal lotuses moved together, attacking Lin Tian mightily. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. With a stomp of his feet, the Tao light around his body immediately spread out, turning into a rain of swords, facing the densely packed chaotic immortal lotuses that were attacking him. Chi! 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 In an instant, the chaotic immortal lotuses that filled the sky exploded one by one, crushed by the nameless Great Tao one after another. He crushed the immortal lotuses condensed by the Chaos Great Tao. What kind of Great Tao is that? How can it be compared to the Chaos Great Tao? Many cultivators turned pale with fright. The Chaos Great Tao was ranked fourth among the 3,000 Great Taos, but now, the light of the Great Tao nomological laws that Lin Tian unleashed easily crushed the chaotic immortal lotuses condensed by the Chaos Great Tao. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. The golden divine light around his body surged, and his footsteps became faster. With a shake of the Chaos Emperor fist, an immortal phoenix true dragon appeared and punched at Enlanging. At the same time, the reincarnation diagram above his head trembled, releasing a mighty divine and holy aura that suppressed the surroundings, as if it was going to send Enlanging into the murky darkness. This kind of attitude was domineering and incomparably imposing, causing everyone to be moved. So powerful! Some people's eyes flickered. Enlanging's eyes were even more frightening. The vast chaotic immortal lotuses that filled the sky pressed down on Lin Tian. At the same time, she also moved. She used the chaotic immortal river to meet the reincarnation diagram, used the defying immortal myriad layers to meet the Chaos Emperor fist, and used the Chaos Great Tao to suppress eternity. For a time, the Chaos Great Tao and the Chaos Great Tao surged. The destructive aura soared, and the murderous light was awe-inspiring. Lin Tian was fearless. The black hair in front of his forehead danced. He controlled the reincarnation diagram and unleashed the Chaos Emperor fist, suppressing the nameless Great Tao. It was as if an immortal emperor had been reborn, suppressing all things. In an instant, the two collided. All kinds of divine light and Tao radiance danced, directly annihilating everything around them. Boom! Lin Tian's body was slender, and Enlanging's eyes were cold. Both of their auras were powerful and oppressive. They attacked each other in the sky full of divine light. Divine abilities and secret techniques collided, and great Tao nomological laws clashed. Neither of them gave in, and the sky was full of destructive aura. Boom! 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 Heaven and earth shook, rumbling, and terrifying air vibrations rippled out. There were even arcs of lightning intertwining. That person's great Tao really completely blocked the chaos great Tao. He's actually not at a disadvantage at all. What Tao is that? Is it as powerful as the chaos great Tao? Many cultivators were shocked. As far as the eye could see, the Tao radiance outside Lin Tian's body collided with Enlongjing's chaos great Tao. It was actually not weak at all. It disintegrated Enlongjing's chaos great Tao again and again, shocking many cultivators. No, that's not right. It's not as powerful as the chaos great Tao. His cultivation level is lower than Enlongjing's by 3 minor realms. Normally speaking, his great Tao nomological laws would not be as mature and complete as Enlongjing's great Tao nomological laws. To be able to completely block Enlongjing's chaos great Tao in such a state, and continuously disintegrate the chaos Tao radiance, this situation can only be said to be. An older cultivator at the 9th heaven of the great Tao said, his eyes flashing fiercely. The great Tao nomological laws he controls are stronger than the chaos great Tao. Hearing this, the nearby cultivators were shocked again. Their gazes fell on Lin Tian, and all of them were shocked. His Tao is stronger than the chaos great Tao. Someone was shocked. Boom! On the battlefield, billowing divine power broke through the clouds, and waves of destruction spread out continuously, spreading out in all directions. Lin Tian's eyes were cold. He propped up the king's domain, waved his emperor's fist, and suppressed the Tao radiance. He fought with Enlongjing from the sky to the ground, and from the ground to the firmament. They fought until blood splattered and flesh flew everywhere. Among them, there was his blood, as well as Enlongjing's blood. However, he didn't seem to care about this in the slightest. Enlon and Jing Yi's expressions didn't change. The two's eyes were both cold, killing intent erupting in all directions. Both of them carried destructive divine might as they attacked the other. After that, hundreds of breaths passed in the blink of an eye. Both of them had been blasted to pieces by each other more than 10 times. The aura outside their bodies was already extremely weak, and even the Tao radiance had been concealed. They began the most primitive physical confrontation. Bang! Lin Tian punched out heavily, landing on Enlongjing's chest, directly breaking several of Enlongjing's ribs. At this time, his injuries were extremely serious, and he no longer had the strength to shatter the powerful chaotic physique with a punch. Enlongjing flew backward and roared in a low voice. She forcefully stabilized her body, turned around, and landed a kick on Lin Tian's body. Lin Tian's body shook, and he directly coughed up blood. All the bones in his body seemed to be about to fall apart in the next moment, and intense pain spread throughout his body. However, he did not care. His eyes were still cold, and he endured the pain of his broken body and stepped forward, raising his fist and punching Enlongjing. Enlongjing's eyes were also frightening. Her blood-stained hair danced wildly, and she rushed towards Lin Tian like a demon king. Bang! 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 The two of them collided. There was no magical power or secret technique, just the most primitive attack of fists and feet. It's a draw, evenly matched. That person is actually not weak with the chaotic imperial physique. Many cultivators were shocked. In the field, Lin Tian and Enlongjing's bodies were already on the verge of collapse, and each of them blasted the other several zhang away with a punch. They were both gasping for breath, and blood was gushing out of their mouths. However, their eyes were incomparably cold, and their killing intent was surging like a vast ocean. Kill! Kill! The two of them roared, stomped on the ground, and once again rushed towards each other with their fists. Suddenly, a brown figure flashed past. It was actually a little squirrel, who had rushed into this battlefield at some point in time. It bared its teeth, and with a fierce appearance, it pounced to Enlongjing's side and bit Enlongjing's right wrist. Chapter 893. Outside the battlefield, the expressions of all the cultivators changed. There was actually an ordinary little squirrel that had unknowingly rushed into the battlefield. At this moment, it bit Enlonjing's wrist with an angry expression. All the hair on its body stood on end. Many cultivators were shocked and stunned. Lin Tian's expression changed immediately as he recognized this little squirrel. It was clearly that little thing he had encountered when he first entered this immortal estate world. At that time, the little thing had suffered some injuries, and he had used his divine power to heal the little thing's injuries. At this time, when he saw the little squirrel jump out and bite Enlonjing, his heart moved. This little thing was helping him. Get lost! Enlonjing's eyes were cold. She shook her hand and shook the little squirrel away. With a bang, the little squirrel flew more than 9 feet away. After landing on the ground, it let out a wail and suddenly stopped moving. Lin Tian's expression changed, and his body trembled slightly. Enlonjing! He roared, and his black hair danced wildly. At this moment, he clenched his right fist, and golden divine light surged out. A true dragon appeared, and it let out an earth-shaking dragon roar. With one step, he stepped in front of Enlonjing. Enlonjing's expression changed. You pfft! Lin Tian's fist landed firmly on Enlonjing's body, directly shattering half of Enlonjing's body. At the same time, Enlonjing was sent flying more than 10 feet away. He gritted his teeth and stepped in front of Enlonjing again. For a moment, violent fist shadows fell on Enlonjing like raindrops. Bang! 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 He moved his fists together, and the golden fist shadows blasted out one after another. The sky was filled with blood, and the void was distorted inch by inch. Ah! Enlonjing roared and forcibly condensed a complete body. She blocked Lin Tian's fist shadows and retreated 3 feet away. However, Lin Tian's aura completely suppressed her at this time. He took a step forward and approached again like lightning. You! Bang! Another punch, this time landing on Enlonjing's face, directly sending her flying. Blood splattered all over the sky. Lin Tiandao's body was full of wounds, blood staining his clothes. However, at this time, he didn't adjust his breathing at all. After sending Enlonjing flying, he once again stepped forward, his golden fist directly smashing down. Bang! Once again, Enlonjing was hit and coughed up blood. Scram! Enlonjing roared as she dodged Lin Tian's golden fist. Her 5 fingers clawed at Lin Tian's chest and tore off a large chunk of flesh, turning Lin Tian's chest into a bloody mess. Gritting his teeth, Lin Tian reached out with his left hand and grabbed Enlonjing's arm. He swung his right fist and punched her again. With a bang, Enlonjing's face was punched again. There was a clear sound of bones cracking, and the bridge of her nose was directly smashed. Enlonjing roared and used her strength to shake off Lin Tian's left hand. However, Lin Tian's right fist had already landed again. Bang! Enlonjing was sent flying again, blood floating in the air. Lin Tianyi stepped on the ground and closed in again. Both his hands moved together, and the fist shadows appeared again, enveloping Enlonjing completely. Ah! Enlonjing roared and bellowed. However, she couldn't break free from Lin Tian's fist for a while. As Lin Tian's fist shadows pressed down, strands of chaotic divine blood floated out, sprinkling all over the sky. Enlonjing lost. The chaotic king physique, one of the 9 heavens of the Great Tao, actually lost to a peer of the 6th heavens of the Great Tao. Some cultivators muttered to themselves. Everyone was stunned. No matter what, these people would never have thought that Enlonjing would actually lose, and lose to someone who was 3 minor realms lower than them in cultivation. When experts fight, sometimes, a small action can break the balance and affect the entire battle. An older generation expert stared at the little squirrel in the distance. Everything is because of that little thing. Beside him, the other cultivators followed his gaze. Their eyes flickered, shocked and suspicious. Why would an ordinary little squirrel rush into such a battlefield? Why would it pounce and bite the chaotic physique? Everyone was puzzled. Bang! 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 On the battlefield, Anlanjing was in an extremely sorry state at this moment. She was being suppressed by Lin Tian, and chaotic divine blood kept splattering. Ah! She let out an angry roar and forcefully guided strands of chaotic light to protect her body. At the same time, she attacked Lin Tian. However, this strand of chaotic light was smashed by Lin Tian's fist as soon as it appeared. With a bang, Anlanjing was sent flying again, blood splattering everywhere. He won! In the distance, Baiqiu couldn't help but be surprised and clench her fists. This freakish brat, with his 6th firmament of the Great Tao, he really defeated a 9th firmament chaotic king physique. Even the old monster wishing crocodile couldn't help but be shocked. However, its gaze also fell on the little squirrel further away. It knew very well that the current battle situation had a lot to do with this little thing pouncing and biting and lunging. Beside them, Baiziki and Yang Qi's eyes were also shining. At this time, the mountain range was almost destroyed. The ground had collapsed and sunk more than 100 feet. The surface was full of cracks, and old trees were broken. It was a complete scene after the apocalypse. Bang! On the battlefield, Anlanjing was once again sent flying by Lin Tian. Her chest was completely caved in, and her cheeks were full of blood. Lin Tian took a step forward and closed in on Anlanjing. His aura was clearly at its weakest, but it gave off an extremely terrifying feeling. It was as if a legendary fiend god had stepped out of the long river of time and space. Dong! He punched down. His body was clearly covered in blood, but it still shook the sky and sent Anlanjing flying again. With a puff, one of Anlanjing's arms was smashed. Blood filled the sky and didn't condense for a long time. Damn it! Anlanjing growled. At this moment, her hair was disheveled, and she looked even more miserable. Her eyes were as terrifying as a ferocious beast. Lin Tian's body was covered in blood, and even his hair was stuck with blood. However, his eyes were even more terrifying than Anlanjing's. Anlanjing! He stepped forward and clenched his right fist. The faint image of a true dragon appeared again. Although it was extremely blurry, it still had an extremely terrifying aura, as if it could crush everything. Kill! He growled and stomped on the ground, almost turning into a true dragon as he charged towards Anlanjing. In an instant, all the cultivators here changed expressions. Is the chaotic physique going to be killed? Anlanjing is already on the verge of death. She can no longer resist. The dazzling chaotic king physique is going to meet its end here. All the cultivators were shocked. A chaotic king physique was going to be obliterated in this place in front of their eyes. Boom! Lin Tian punched. His eyes were like swords, and his aura was like a god. When his fist landed, the large void directly collapsed inch by inch. The destructive punch was aimed at Anlanjing's head, and it arrived in the blink of an eye. Buzz! At this moment, Anlanjing growled. A pure white light screen rushed out of her body and directly blocked Lin Tian's punch. It also forced Lin Tian back more than 10 steps. Cough! Lin Tian coughed up blood and looked up. He saw the void beside Anlanjing distort, and a door opened. His eyes were cold. He knew this scene too well. Anlanjing had opened the spatial teleportation platform. Anlanjing, are you trying to escape? He roared. Anlanjing's hair was disheveled, and she was extremely embarrassed. Only her eyes were still extremely frightening, and there was endless killing intent in them. I will kill you, he said coldly. Behind him, the void door emitted rays of light and gradually pulled her in. This is a spatial portal. Anlanjing has a spatial teleportation platform on her. This scene, could it be a spatial teleportation platform that transcends the heavens? Many cultivators were shocked. In the distance, Baiziki and the other two, as well as Wishing Crocodile, naturally also saw it. Wishing Crocodile gritted his teeth. That little bastard actually has such a life-saving thing on her. On the battlefield, Lin Tian was even more furious. His black hair danced wildly as he directly stepped forward. However, he had just taken 3 steps when his body trembled violently, and he directly coughed out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, Unlongjing's figure was also swallowed by the spatial portal and disappeared in front of him. He gritted his teeth and clenched his fists, but there was nothing he could do. At this time, his divine power had already dried up, and his injuries were extremely serious. Even his vision was blurred. Blood flowed into his eyes, causing his vision to be blood-red. He could not see anything clearly, and with a bang, he fell into the dust. In the distance, Baiziki and the other two, as well as Wishing Crocodile, were all shocked and immediately revealed worried expressions. "Brat, hang in there!" Wishing Crocodile shouted. The 5-colored wings on its back spread out, and it turned into a 5-colored strange light, instantly arriving beside Lin Tian. At the same time, Baiziki and the other two arrived one after another, and at the same time used their divine power to help Lin Tian heal his injuries. Buzz! They were all experts, and their divine power was pure. Soon, Lin Tian's injured body began to heal, and the cracks on his body began to heal at an extremely fast speed. After dozens of breaths, Lin Tian's complexion gradually improved. He coughed dryly, and blood flowed out of his mouth. "Damn it, this injury is really serious." Wishing Crocodile ground its teeth. Ever since it had met Lin Tian, apart from the 2 heavenly tribulations of the Great Tao, this was the first time it had seen Lin Tian so seriously injured. "After all, the opponent was Unlongjing," Yang Qi said in a low voice. The group of people quickly sent their divine power to Lin Tian, causing Lin Tian's injuries to heal even faster. In the blink of an eye, dozens of breaths passed. At this time, Lin Tian's complexion finally improved. Although it was still pale, there was a hint of color. "It's done," Yang Qi said. "It's done." Baiziki and the others retracted their divine power and breathed sighs of relief. "Not bad, kid. You defeated the king of primal chaos physique with a cultivation base of 3 minor levels. That's enough to shake the world." Wishing Crocodile bared its fangs. "I was lucky." Lin Tian forced a smile. Using his right hand to prop himself up, he looked over at the little squirrel in the distance. The others followed his gaze, and their gazes fell on the little squirrel. "Speaking of which, this little thing that suddenly appeared can be considered as a great help to you," Wishing Crocodile said. Lin Tian nodded. He knew better than anyone that if the little squirrel hadn't suddenly jumped out and bitten Unlongjing, it would have been hard to say who would have won the battle. At this time, his body was still in pain, and he walked over to the little squirrel. "You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.